Well, hello everyone and welcome back to the February, digest. So we're going to be covering all the stuff that I watched this last month, so February 2024, and well, I guess consumed as well. So the first thing is Raft. So this is a game. I played it for 45 hours with friends. So it was me and two other friends, and that was from the 6th of October last year to the 4th of February this year. And overall, this is a nice 3 out of 5. Okay, it's a fun survival game. I enjoyed it. It's always, because I'm playing with my friends, it's like way better than I think it would have been. I can't imagine really myself playing this by myself. I'd probably give it like a 2 out of 5 on my own, I imagine. But anyway, it was fun. Now, there's a few elements to this. One is that you're basically on a raft. You start off with like a few pieces of wood and you like travel over the ocean. You collect resources by like fishing with like a fishing net or like throwing out like an anchor or not an anchor, like a hook or whatever. And then you go to islands, then you like kill things and collect like resources from there. And eventually you like go through a little story and get to the end and beat the game. Now my favorite part of this game is the building elements. So building the actual raft, collecting all the wood and stuff and building it high and designing it however you want. I liked all that. However, this comes with a major criticism of the game, which is that it's incredibly frustrating to collect items. Like, it doesn't get much easier. Like, basically, at the beginning, you have to manually collect stuff, which is difficult, and then eventually you can place like little collection nets across the raft that will like collect stuff automatically, which is great. And then you can put like a maximum number of, say, like, I think it's like 30 or 40, whatever, in a line. And then you've like optimized. Like, that's the maximum you can really collect. And then from then onwards, it's like a struggle to kind of like collect items. And it's like a quick ceiling that you reach in that regard, which is a bit annoying. Other than that, there's also like a survival element to the game where you got like food and water, and you need to like constantly be eating food and drinking water or having smoothies that like fill both or whatever. And that kind of caps out pretty quickly and gets quite annoying because it doesn't like, you'll be... Basically, the ceiling of these things needs to be higher. You need to be able to get more resources more easily later in the game when you want to build more stuff. And you need to be able to get more food and water more consistently and easily that'll last like for a longer time when you're at the end game, so you can focus on the other stuff in the end game. You don't have to be still worrying about all that basic stuff of like survival. So that was annoying. But yeah, anyway, what did I actually write about this? So yeah, the survival stuff. There's really not much to say, I guess. I said the other thing is that we spent some time trying to decode a message that was it was like in, what do you even call it? I think it's the NATO alphabet or whatever, where it's like alpha, beta, or whatever, and they have a signal on the radio, and we spent like so long, like so many sessions. Every now and then we'd hear it on the radio and we'd like write it down and decode it, and then it came out and it was just a meme. It was like, all your base belong to us or something. All your rafts belong to us. So that was a bit disappointing, but anyway, that's the thing. And then also the actual story of the game is I guess I didn't really pay much attention to it, but it felt very not really a big part of this game. So I think if you want to play this game, play it for the survival, crafting elements, and there's also like a story attached. But anyway, that was Raft. 3 out of 5. Whatever. Next up, we have Radius. So this is this is a movie that came out in 2017. It's an hour and 33 minutes long, and I saw it on the 7th of February. Now, I think I initially heard about this because, I'm looking for movies to watch because I love movies and all that. And I went to Reddit and I'm like, oh, what's like a small budget, unknown, cruel, engaging sci-fi movie? And I think people recommended this. And the premise of this is that whenever there's basically this main character guy, and whenever someone gets within like a certain distance of him, I think it was either 25 feet or 25 meters or something. Actually, now that I think it's probably 25 feet, which is like 10 meters, they die. So anyone who gets close to him, any animal, whatever, they all die when they get that close to him. So it's a really interesting premise. And it is a terrible execution. This is easily one of the worst movies I've ever seen. It's a 1 out of 5. It's purely like, it starts off really promising. Like, he's in a car, he's driving, like he's in an accident, whatever. He gets out, like people are coming to save him, like from the accident, or for like trying to check on him or whatever, and they're dying and you don't know what's happening, and their eyes are like turning into this like really cool like gray color, and it's like, oh my god, something's happening, and the police come and the police die, and it's like, that's really interesting. And then for some reason they introduce the element that there's another character here, this girl, who whenever they're next to each other, his ability is gone. Not his ability, but whatever. The thing that's happening to him is gone, and people don't die around them anymore. So for the majority of this movie, the really interesting aspect of it, which is that people can't get close to him or they die, that element is gone from the movie, and it kind of like ruins the entire movie. But other than that, it is full of like bad movie tropes and like elements, and it's like terrible. So I have a list here. I said, the like plot of this movie is also the most generic thing you've ever heard. The guy gets in a car accident at the beginning and he has amnesia, and like the movie is slowly or trying to, he is like remembering things as the story goes on, and by the end of it you figure out like the whole like timeline of what led up to the car accident. And it's not even there is like a plot twist where you actually find out that he's the villain or whatever, like the guy with amnesia. And I guess that's also kind of a trope which I've seen done before, but I don't know, that element of it I guess was all right. But anyway, number one has the amnesia storyline, which a million things have done before, and it did not do it in an interesting manner. It's also a frustrating movie because like he doesn't do anything rationally. Like he doesn't try and stay away from, I mean, he kind of does try and stay away from people, but he doesn't like try and ask for help or like contact people over the phone, and he wants to like see people in person. And it's just, it's really annoying. He doesn't like call the police, even anonymously, to like talk to them and be like, I don't know what's going on here, something like that. It's just frustrating. What else is there? Oh, yeah, there's like an element throughout this story of like this girl who, she also, I believe she also lost her memory, and she was trying to figure out what's happening. And, one of the, like she has a missing poster, and it's like, oh, why is she missing? And then you find out that the answer to that is that it's not her who's missing, it's her twin sister, which is like the most generic like plot twist you could ever do. Anyway, there's also a jealous husband trope in this, where the husband is like jealous of these two who are out of nowhere like spending time together, and it's cringe. And then you got the plot twist at the end, which also like a bit overdone, but you know what, it was fine. I'll accept the plot twist, whatever. What else? Yeah, I got another thing. It's very frustrating. There's no communication, no calling the police, they want to communicate in person rather than over the phone. And there's it just feels like he doesn't understand the danger of his abilities. And he is not even curious to explore it or anything. Like it's just frustrating. And there's a lot of bad acting in this, particularly from this woman. Now I don't know if it's the actor's fault or if it's like a director who like didn't get a good take from them or whatever. We'll get to that when we talk about Avatar later, but, yeah, the acting in this is terrible as well. And my last overall thought is that this movie feels like a first draft that you would pitch to a studio, and then they'd like write the proper movie or something. It just feels it's really bad. Yeah, I would not recommend this movie. It's just like for the bulk of it, it's not even enjoyable. Like it's just boring for the most part. Except for that beginning. The beginning was pretty good. Now I have two miscellaneous notes. One is that, whenever, because it's an amnesia storyline and you're getting like not constant, but every now and then you get a flashback to his past to see it as he remembers a new detail. And they jump scare you with it every time. It like plays this loud noise and then you flash to the past, and it's like they're obviously just trying to scare you, and it's so annoying. I hate it. Then there's this one scene. This is easily, I think this is probably the worst scene in this, which is that the guy who has the power that people die around him, he gets in an elevator, and then the woman who, as long as those two are close to each other, everything's good. She doesn't make it into the elevator in time, and the elevator like goes down a level. And you're like, oh my God, everyone's going to die if they get further away from each other. Because if they're like within 10 feet or 25 feet or whatever, the abilities are cancelled. But when they're further away, people start dying. So you're like, oh my God, he's in the elevator. She needs to like run down the stairs. And she does run down the stairs with the elevator. And then for some reason, like the guy doesn't get out when he gets like one level lower. He like stays in the elevator, and the woman arrives and she's like, oh my God, he didn't go here. He's going even lower. The elevator's going lower, and they need to chase the elevator. And for some reason, the guy is just not getting out of the elevator. And I'm like, I don't know what's going on here. And that was terrible. But anyway, the surprising thing about this movie, and let me double check, is the Rotten Tomatoes score. So this is Radius, Rotten Tomatoes, 93% for critics, which is insane. I cannot imagine someone watching this movie and thinking it's a good movie, which is what that percentage means, right? Like 93% of critics thought it was at least a good movie. It doesn't say how good it is or whatever, but they thought it was positive, which is insane to me. And like I found a Reddit comment of someone who sums this up perfectly, which is they said, for me, it might be the worst movie I've ever seen. My mind actually can't process anyone saying this is even a decent film, much less the critics who scored it well. The storyline was so predictable it was cliche. The acting, mostly from the female lead, was so bad we laughed ourselves throughout the whole thing, and the dialogue waffled between atrocious and unintentionally hilarious. The cause that's revealed is so stupid as well that we can't believe it. This should have a 5% on Rotten Tomatoes, and I'm convinced people were paid off to fudge the score so poor unsuspecting people like us would watch it. I can't imagine how this movie ever got made. And I completely agree, because alongside finding this recommended on Reddit, before I watched it, I did look up the Rotten Tomatoes score, and I was like, oh, is this like generally a good movie, or am I going to be wasting my time? And it had such a high score where I was like, oh my God, this is going to be a great movie. And it was not. And I just, something is afoot here, all right? But anyway, that's The Radius. Don't watch it. Next up, we have The Menu, which is a 2022 movie. It's an hour and 46 minutes long, and I watched it on the 8th of February. And this, oh, okay, I guess before I reveal the score, I heard about this from looking at the Red Letter Media recommendations, or like, what do they call it? Do like a catch up, I think, at the end of every year. And it was from their 2022 one. And I think like the majority of my favorite movies that I've ever seen have come from there. Like, I think no, actually, I don't know about the Florida Project, but A Ghost Story was there. One Cut at the Dead was there. There's a bunch of movies that I've seen which have been like all my favorites, and they come from that recommendations here. So if you're interested, go check out the yearly recaps or whatever from Red Letter Media. But this is a 5 out of 5. This is a fantastic movie. Now, okay, the first thing to say is that this guy back here, Voldemort, Ralph Fiennes, he's a really great actor. He's like the big appeal of this movie. The premise here is that you've got these rich people who go to an island that is like owned by this chef or whatever, and it's like a really prestigious restaurant, like the best restaurant in the world or whatever. And all these like critics and like rich people and stuff are all going there. And then things happen. I'm going to spoil it now, but it's a horror movie, kind of, and people are dying, and the chef is like killing people, and basically these people are kidnapped there, and they're staying there. And the whole movie, you're kind of like, what's happening? Why are they doing this? Why are they killing people? What's the lesson? Like, what's going on? And that's the premise. And the actor is just so good, and he carries it. And you find out at the end of the movie that you're following the chef here, who is like the best of his craft or whatever, and everyone respects him, and he's like making all this pretentious food and everything. But like along the way, he lost the true passion that he had, which is that initially he just liked making food that people enjoy, and now he's gotten to the point where he's like having to cater to all these art critics, and like it's just not for him, and he just like he kind of hates or resents these people that are criticizing his art, and I think that's really interesting. So I like this movie. I don't think about this movie as like a food movie or anything like that. I just think of it as like a criticism of art critique or something, which is funny because that's what I'm doing right now, kind of. But yeah, so I love this movie. And I guess it's also somewhat of a comedy. I guess there is a lot of like, well, how would you even describe this? Nothing like the premise is silly. The stuff that's going on is silly, but it's not funny. I guess it's not really a comedy where there's jokes or anything. It's just like a ridiculous premise. But yeah, so anyway, now I have a few miscellaneous notes. All right, go watch this movie. It's a great movie, by the way. But yeah, miscellaneous notes. The initial appeal of this movie is the mystery. True, that is true. There is like because initially you're following these two characters, a boyfriend and a girlfriend, basically, and the boyfriend is the art critic or the food critic or whatever, and he's taking he kind of dumped his old girlfriend or got divorced or whatever, and has brought a new girlfriend, and the girlfriend hasn't been registered under the chef's place or whatever. The island hasn't registered that she's being there, so they haven't done the research on her. So throughout the whole movie, you're like, oh my god, what are they doing? Like, how much research have they done on these people? What does it mean that she has it? They don't know anything about her. Like, where's that they're gonna go? And it's like you got this massive like mystery element. And then also at the same time, you have an eerie tone, and you're like, what's going on here? Is there going to be like a horror element? And eventually that gets revealed. And I think it's a very engaging movie for these like mysteries and not knowing exactly where it's going. Oh, and also the boyfriend, the main girl's boyfriend, he's also really funny. He's like completely unaware of all the horror elements that are going on. And he is like the most pretentious of pretentious art people, like praising everything and adding meaning where there's otherwise no meaning. And it is fantastic. I love that character. Now, I truly have a bunch of miscellaneous notes. So I just have a quote here. I said, it's not arbitrary. Nothing in the kitchen is arbitrary. And then I just said, this is like a metaphor. There's clearly a metaphor going on in this movie about like art interpretation. Like there being like, it's all open to interpretation. And even though the people here think everything is intentional, the intention doesn't really matter. And it's just like about enjoying things, I guess. But that was kind of interesting. What is there? There's... oh my god, they also mentioned COVID. That was crazy. This is like one of the few movies I've seen where, because in this that one guy says, oh, he even kept you open during COVID because the island is like owned by like some richer person or whatever, and the rich person kept them open. I was like, oh my god, I can't believe COVID is mentioned in the movie. What is this? Knives Out? Crazy. Glass Onion? Anyway. There's also a really, there's a scene where the chef basically the chef is like putting on a performance when he's at the front. He's giving these grand speeches and he's like clapping, and it's like he's basically like he's leading a cult and a cult presentation to these new people or whatever. And then there's a scene where he takes the main girl, the girlfriend of the boyfriend, whatever. and they go to the back room, and the chef is like completely different, and he's serious, and he's like talking to her, and it's like he's busy and he doesn't have time for her. And to me, this felt exactly like when I saw this, I was like, oh my god, this has to be like a Willy Wonka reference. And now I haven't seen Willy Wonka in a very long time, like since I was a kid. But the one scene from that movie that always stuck with me was when you go to the back, like the office of where Willy Wonka actually works, and he's like a completely different person, and he's serious, and he's like angry at, I think, Charlie or whatever the main guy's name is. And yeah, it's just like it's such a stark difference to the other character of him that we've seen. And it felt like we got that exact same scene in here, and I was like, oh my god, this must be a reference. So anyway, that was kind of cool. Then I said the boyfriend is an analysis YouTuber who analyzes things and doesn't say if they're good or bad, he just breaks them down analytically. And then the chef has this line about it where it's like, you are why the mystery has been drained from our art. Like, hell yeah, this is great stuff. And then the self-awareness of the movie is also great, because throughout the entire movie, you're thinking, like, why don't these people try and run away? Like, if they really tried to run away, they could probably get away, right? There's only a limited number of employees. They don't have, like, any crazy weapons or, like, high-tech crazy stuff or anything. They could probably survive if they ran away. But then the chef brings this up at one point, and he's like, ask yourselves, this entire evening, why didn't you all try harder to fight back, to get out of here? Honestly, you probably could have. Something to think about. So that was kind of cool. The review, a little bit self-aware. And then the last miscellaneous note here is that I love the climax of the movie, where it's like it's just making a simple cheeseburger. And it just ties in so well with the fact that you see him when he was younger. You see the picture of the chef, and he's so happy making that one cheeseburger in his first job he probably ever had. And when I see that, I'm like, oh my god, this poor man, he's lost his way. He's not happy about like the life he's living, and he wishes he go back to simpler times or whatever, and be gone with all these art critics and stuff, and just let him make the art that he enjoys making, you know, and that he enjoys having other people enjoy. So that was a great climax, and it was actually somewhat emotional of a climax, so I like that. But anyway, that's the menu. So go watch that movie. I love that movie. Next up, we have Madam Web. So this is a 2024 movie, the first 2024 movie I've seen in 2024. It's an hour and 54 minutes long, so it's incredibly long, and I watched it on the 17th of February. I think roughly. It might have been the 16th. I put it on my list basically on the 17th. And I watched this in a theater, so I don't have too many notes on it. But as you can probably expect, this was a terrible movie. I'm sure you've heard about it. It's a Sony superhero movie, and generally anything that isn't a Marvel movie, which is a superhero movie, is generally terrible, and this was exceptionally terrible. And the thing is that it's immediately terrible. Like, the first scene you get is like these awkward, like, stiff conversation that these two characters are having, and it's like shot, reverse shot, shot, reverse shot. It's like so repetitive. Like, the directing and the writing is bad, and like it just doesn't look good, and it's like, wow, immediately you can tell this is gonna be a bad movie, which is really impressive. Another thing is that I saw the trailer for this movie before I watched it, and you can tell from the trailer that it's going to be bad. But in my opinion, the impression I got from the trailer is exactly what the movie was. So if you want to like watch the movie without watching the movie, or at least get the vibe of like what it feels like to watch this movie, just watch the trailer, and you'll basically understand what this movie would feel like in terms of like both plot and like overall vibe. So there you go. What else is there? Acting. Yeah, the acting is terrible. Basically every character, except for Madam Web. Madam Web was fine, but except for the end where she was in a wheelchair and she's like blind or something. Acting from there was a bit weird, but before that she was okay. Everyone else was terrible. And it at times, especially the three young girls, it just feels like they're reading literally from like a script or something at some time. So I don't know, it's really bad. Directing was also really bad. There's a lot of like awkward close-ups of like faces, and there's a lot of like I said, the reverse shot, so much of that. It's so bland and boring and uninteresting and blah, 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 blah. Then there's a villain in this movie who we never really get to understand his motivations at all. He's like rich and wants to stay rich or something. I guess his only motivation is to survive, but I don't know why he's so evil or anything like that. And he's a terrible actor, and he just feels like some random guy that's like inserted into Madam Web's plot for no reason. So if you took out all of his scenes and you introduced like some other I don't even know, I think you could easily cut him out of this movie and not much would change. You just need to give them the motivation for like why they're hiding, and not be like some random guy. I don't know, whatever. Yeah, and all of his action scenes are also bad. I took a photo here, a screenshot for the background here. This is a terrible scene. And Anyway, like the issue with his fights are that initially he's portrayed as incredibly strong, but like for the rest of the movie, it's just so inconsistent as to how strong he is. Like I just one scene you could like he could probably beat all four of the characters at once, and then another scene it's like he just like gets swatted by a car and is out for like half an hour or something. Like it's just so wildly inconsistent. Now I do have one positive thing to say about this, which is that I wasn't ever bored. Like it was perfectly like I didn't regret watching this. Like I said about the Radius was pretty boring. This wasn't boring. Like I enjoyed it. The like maybe I enjoyed it because of just how impressively bad it is. But yeah, it wasn't like a drag to watch or anything. And then I also, now that I think about it, the Marvels is like an infinitely way more boring movie than this. The Marvels is like it is way better made. Like technically, like the effects and the visuals and the acting and even the music and the directing, all of that is like way better than Madam Web, but that's just such a boring movie. I was bored watching the Marvels, whereas in this wasn't too bad. And then, oh yeah, the best scene in this movie is like right at the beginning, not right at the beginning, but like toward the beginning, where it's like a flash forward into the future. Like the main villain is seeing a vision, and you have these three random spider women come up and like beat him up, and I'm like, oh, that was cool. I like that. That was a good VFX, good, it's a cool action scene. I liked it. And then it went all downhill from there. So anyway, and then also I have just miscellaneous notes here. So for some reason, the movie is set in 2003. I don't know why. I don't see any reason that has to be the case, but that's kind of weird. Seeing the future scenes are never used in an interesting way. Oh my god. Madam Web can see the future. And my god, does the movie make it incredibly, incredibly obvious. Which is that the first time that she there's a scene on a train where she the person in front of her says something, and then the person in front of her says the exact same thing, and you're like, oh my god, she can see the future. And then as the audience, you've already picked it up. But no, they don't stop there. They do that same scene, I think, 4 times in total. You see the exact same scene where it's like the person says something and then a train goes by, and then she notices one of the girls is getting killed or something. And then you see the same scene again where it's a person says something, the train goes by again, and then another girl gets kidnapped. Jesus, how has Madam Web not pieced together that she can see the future? To the audience, it's so obvious, and they think we're maybe the movie thinks we're stupid, or maybe the movie thinks that Madam Web is stupid. I don't know. It was ridiculous. Then the epilogue section, afterwards, where she gets blinded and injured or whatever. It's for some reason she got converted into a completely different character, and I'm I have no idea why. It's she I don't even know. She's just a normal woman before that, and then afterwards she becomes a lifeless Charles Xavier kind of mentor person. It's what just happened? What caused this? Did she get a brain injury from the fight with the bad guy? I have no idea. That was crazy. The movie, oh boy, yeah, the movie opens with Madam Web's mum, basically, when she's pregnant with Madam Web. I don't know any of the character names, by the way. The mum finds a spider. She gets shot by the villain, who is immortal, I guess, or maybe he actually gets older. I don't remember. But she gets shot. Then the spider people take her, and she gets bitten by the spider. And then Madam Web is born or whatever. And then later on in the movie, Madam Web goes back to the spider people, and we see the exact same scene, the same montage. We get it again. They play it twice. They played it at the beginning of the movie, and then they play it again. And it's it feels like they're just trying to fill time, or if they truly think that the audience has an IQ of 70 or something, and they're oh my god, they're not going to realize that she's back where the spider people were unless we play the exact same montage again. Oh, that was crazy. Yeah, this is an impressively bad movie, is how I would describe this. I cannot imagine how anyone watched this. There's got to be hundreds of people involved. This is a massive budget, Sony movie. How are there so many people who watch this and were yeah, this is okay to publish? So anyway, there's another terrible action scene with the villain where, oh boy, the three spider women who the villain is trying to kill, they're in a car, all right, and they're in traffic or whatever. They're stuck. They can't go anywhere. And then or whatever it is, they just can't move. I don't know if it's traffic or whatever, but then the villain comes and he's about to kill him. He jumps on their car and he's standing up on the car or whatever. And then Madam Web drives I don't know what it was, a bus or an ambulance or something off the roof of a building and over the car that he's standing on, where it's oh my god, she's gonna kill him and it's gonna be crazy. And instead of staying on the car or whatever and where or ducking down a little bit, he literally jumps in the way of the ambulance and gets hit by the ambulance. And it's bro, this is terrible. Like, where are his superpowers? Like, why did he do that? If he literally just stood where he was and like ducked a little bit, he would have been perfectly fine. Or if he like ducked down to the car that he's trying to attack, like what's Madame Web gonna do? Like kill the people that she's trying to protect? Like it was dumb. It's one of the dumbest scenes I've seen in my life. It was crazy. And like midway through this movie, all my notes here out of order, but midway through the movie, she abandons the three girls that she's trying to save, and she just takes a trip to Peru. While she's a wanted woman for kidnapping, driving a stolen taxi with like a missing number plate or whatever, and somehow she travels to Peru. Like, and also in fairness, I did go to the bathroom like at this, like the end of this scene, so maybe I missed some context, but it was crazy. I don't know what the logic is, and somehow she like came back in like 45 minutes or something. It felt like no time had passed at all, so that was crazy. But then, of course, you've got the annoying trope, like the three young girls who Madame Web is like, stay here, I need to go do something. And then they obviously leave and go to the public and expose where they are and their location. The villain finds them like, my God, we're doing this dumb, like kids are dumb trope where they just don't listen to the authority or whatever. And then something that is kind of interesting is that this is a woman-led movie. Like there's basically all the main characters are women. There's like 4 women in this movie, which are all basically leads. And the movie never points it out. And I'm like, okay, this is great. It's a nice refreshing thing where it's like, we get you get the women superheroes, which is what we want. But you don't have to like make it obvious or like make like some pointed out and cheapen the movie because of that. So I kind of like that. That was kind of cool. And my last note, I said, this movie felt like if you gave a random person a really big budget and told them to make a sci-fi Spider-Man movie. So yeah. Anyway, that's Madame Web, a truly impressively terrible movie. All right, next up, we have a reread. So this is Old Dragon's Tale. So this is a book. Well, I guess technically it's a web novel, which is originally Japanese, and I read like English translations of it. It took around 7 hours to read it all, and I read it on the 17th of February. I think this took like 2 days, so like 16th and 17th, but whatever, you get the point. And this is a novel I've read before. This is a prequel story to Mushoku Tensei, so if you are interested in Mushoku Tensei, do not watch this section of this digest. Leave, because I'm going to be talking about Mushoku Tensei spoilers, and they're not small spoilers, they're pretty big spoilers for like the general direction of the Mushoku Tensei plot and stuff. And I'm going to be spoiling villains and heroes, and just leave, all right? If you're interested in Mushoku Tensei, leave if you don't want to be spoiled right now. That's your warning. Anyway, so overall, this is fantastic. So I read it before, I thought it was a 5 out of 5. I read it again, I think it's still a 5 out of 5. So this is a really good story. Now, in terms of how I read this, there's, as far as I'm aware, there's 2 translations that are available, like two fan translations. And there's the one I read last time, which was like a year and a half or 2 years ago. And that's what I read for the majority of this reread, which is like, for say the first like 5 hours, I think I read that translation because I think it's like a decently good translation for that point, for that far. But then after that 5-hour point, it turns to like, from like a, say 4 out of 5 translation to a 1 out of 5 translation. And I'm like, I don't know what happened here. Like there's paragraphs missing and the words, like it's not, the sentences aren't coherent and I can't understand what's happening. So at that point I'd like swap to another translation, which I think is like a machine translation plus like proofreading, which I have written here. I guess I wrote this a while ago and I made these notes. It's translated by Puni, Kalan and Oni, I think that's what it said. So credit to those people, I guess. And that was good. So I read that for the last 2 hours or 3 hours or whatever. And that was great finish. So that was my first time reading that translation, which was different to what I read in my initial read through. So anyway, just thought I'd preface that. But yeah, overall it's just really good. It's maybe I should just go over my notes here. So I guess there's a few elements in this story that I think are really, really good. And the first is just the massive reveal you get, which is a bit, you don't get the same feeling the second time you read it, but the first time you read it, there's 2 massive reveals, which is that number one, you have the first chapter or whatever, and you're going through it and you have no idea who this old dragon is until the dragon god gives him his name, and you're like, and the dragon god is like Laplace. Your name is Laplace, and you're like, oh my god, this is the story of Laplace. Like oh my god, the demonic god who we haven't heard. We truly haven't heard his backstory properly fleshed out until this point. And it's so exciting when you read that, and it's so satisfying of a reveal in this. So I really like that. And the other thing, which is that a reveal that saved right until the last minute of this entire story, which is that Rostalina, the girl we're following throughout this entire story, is a Lionelize, which is a crazy reveal, which is so cool. So unnecessary. You don't have to have that. A Lionelize's story is fine and wrapped up, whatever, by the end of Mushoku Tensei. But to give her this kind of add a very, very sad element to her story, which is that she used to be an entirely different person, and that was taken away from her based on just bad luck from Laplace just getting caught up in a battle and not being able to come back, and her losing her whole identity because of that. Yeah, it's so tragic and a great reveal, and I like that. Obviously it's more impactful the first time you read it, but also it was still great this time. Another overall thing that I really like about this, which is that I love the framing of this novel. It's framed like the entire story. You're not just like hearing the story of the great demon dragon king Laplace back in the days of the dragon world or whatever. It's framed as a story from a wise old man being told to a young girl who is interested in his life. I really like that story. Because that framing of the story, because it gives you the chance to there's a few reasons I like it. Firstly, you get to build the relationship between Laplace and Rostalina, which is really great. Secondly, it adds an element of mystery, like because in the breaks, like when he's not telling the story, Laplace is like writing things, and he's like leaving to go to places. Sometimes I think for like decades or something, like he's going for a long time. And also the fact that it's Laplace in the present, but it's so different from the Laplace that you've heard about, like the demon god who, the start of the human demon war and led to all this destruction because he was split in two or whatever. And you're like, how does what he's telling now lead to that eventual reality in Mushoku Tensei? And it's like such a engaging mystery, and it's only possible because you're hearing this as Laplace telling the story. So I really like that element. And I like the emotional aspect that you get from it not just being a story about, like, you're not just reading a book from the history of the world. You're getting the man who is involved in the stories reflecting on the story. So like throughout the telling of it, he interjects his like thoughts on it, and he's like, oh, if only I changed this at this point. Or even there's one really great scene where you don't realize that he's been crying basically for the whole like latter half of this story ever since his mum died, until like Rostalina kind of interjects and it's like, Laplace, like, are you okay? And you don't realize he's crying until you flash back to the present, and he's crying and he's like hunched over, and it's like this big man is being comforted by this like small girl or whatever. Yeah, it's great. I love the framing of this. And what else? Yeah, the interjections are great. Like, if only I could have done this. Yeah, and I also kind of like at the same time how Laplace, this is more of a character thing than like a meta thing or whatever, but how he always seems to mention that I wish I could have done this, but it probably wouldn't have made a difference because the man god was always in control. There was nothing I could have done anyway. So it's kind of a cool character thing as well, where he acknowledges that there's no real point in kind of thinking about what he could have done better because he probably would have lost regardless. So that's the first thing. Fantastic framing. I guess there's like I haven't got notes on this, but there's a whole, like, Laplace is a fantastic character. I don't think I have too much on that because, eventually I might want to make a video on Laplace and I'll save that for that. But there's a lot of great stuff with Laplace. Like, even just like the fact that I've said this before briefly, like here, but just the fact that it's so, you're seeing so much of the tragedy of his life, where it's like he was a nice person. He was a nice, kind old man. Like, what could have been if he just got to live a life like this with Rostalina, forever. Yeah, but it's a shame of what happened. So I love Laplace in this. Anyway, we'll get to that. Maybe there'll be a video on that one day. The next element of what I really like is the thing in the shape of the human god. So we know him as the man god. That's the title he gives himself, but we don't know what he really is, and we never find out by the end of this, which is really interesting. But I love it. I love the open-ended lore where you have all these theories of like what happened to the creator god. I also love, I didn't mention this, but I love the lore of like the actual six-faced world and how there was a creator god and he like split his soul into like multiple pieces, and he wasn't good at making a world. He had to like balance it and like force all the worlds together into like a six-sided world. That was really cool. But yeah, I like the idea of a senile creator god, and what could that lead to? Like, because always God is usually portrayed as like in an omnipotent role or whatever, especially a god that is creating universes like this. But to have one that has grown so old that he's making mistakes and stuff is really kind of interesting. But anyway, back to the man god stuff. Yeah, I do like that we just never get an answer. Like, what is he? Like, was he? They briefly mention, oh, something was born in the void world or whatever. And it's like, well, was there some entity that was born there? But there's also the possibility, there's also the possibility that he could have just been some guy who like managed to puppeteer the human god or something, like take control of it. It could be like some, there's a few things it could be. It probably is most likely like because this story spends a lot of time talking about the imbalance of the magic in the world or whatever, where it's like if some thing in one world takes up a lot of power, then it could be teleported away because you need to balance the kind of energy, or not the energy, the magical power or whatever. It could be that the man god was like created in response to the magical like imbalances or whatever. I don't know. It's fascinating either way. I also like that we see the patience of his manipulation. Now, obviously, a big part of Mushoku Tensei is the manipulation of the man god, especially when it comes to the whole Roxy thing. And you just see how like precise and small and intricate his details are. And here in this story, Old Dragon's Tale, you see how like long spanning and how far thinking he is when it comes to his manipulations. Like he waits like hundreds of thousands of years to kind of enact this plan where slowly the gods are being turned against each other and they're all fighting each other. And he's turning the dragon kings against the dragon god. And it's crazy. I love it. I love the man god. Good stuff. Now, the most interesting thing, perhaps, about the man god in Old Dragon's Tale, or the thing in the shape of the human god in Old Dragon's Tale, is that we find out why he's going to lose, which is really interesting to me. And Laplace like puts it in exact words, and I have a quote here. He says, "Then the human god turned his eyes towards me. He brought a repulsive, hateful smile to his lips. Well, haha, this is, the human god must have tried to say something plausible at first. He might have wanted to utter words befitting the god of the human world, something that sounded suitable and would leave no lingering bitterness. However, he couldn't hold back. The situation was probably too pleasurable for him. Everything had gone too well, and he couldn't help but mock us." And then he like laughs or whatever. And it's just so interesting because if he truly, if the thing in the shape of the human god, if he didn't laugh at that point and he did give Laplace a plausible reason to believe him, like why he killed the dragon god, like why he put his hand through his chest or whatever, and he left no bitterness in Laplace, he probably would survive. And he would not have, like Orsted when he's born into the future, he would have no guidance from a Laplace. He would not find the history of the dragon kingdom, and he would have nothing. He would have nothing to go on, and the human god would win. But he seeds his own destruction here by laughing in Laplace's face, and ridiculing him, and it will be his ultimate downfall. I think that's really interesting. And I think it will, yeah. I think I'll make a video about this one day, but I really like the man god, and I like that he sees his own destruction at this point, and the fact that we get to see it in this novel is really great. Anyway, the other thing I like is the depressing end to this story. So there's a few depressing ends here, but the man god wins. Dragon god is dead. Dragon kingdom's dead. All the 5 worlds. There's like 5 genocides in this book, which is crazy. They're all gone. And Laplace's soul is split. Like his legacy is like destroyed for the rest of time. The man god is like completely made him a figure of evil at this point. Like he went from like this respected person who was like a dragon general in like a world and everyone loved him or whatever, to now becoming like his literal name Laplace. Just saying Laplace will incite like fear and hatred, and the way he created the superds, and the superds are like one of the most feared things in like the human realm or the human continent, and like it's just crazy what happened to him. It's so sad. This like kind old man who otherwise was just a nice person, like what happened to him is so tragic, and I like that element to it. And there's also the fact that Rostalina even Rostalina like forgets the good memory she had of Laplace, and her memory is gone, and like I said before, like the Rostalina, her identity is completely erased, and it's just sad. And yeah, so I just like the tragic end of this, the multiple tragedies you kind of get. I guess I have it here. I said the triple sad ending, where you have Laplace's story is ending tragically, like the story he's telling of Dragon Kingdom, or Dragon World or whatever, that ends tragically. You have Laplace leaving, like going off and then never coming back. That's a tragedy. And you've got Rostalina being left behind in the crystal, tragically. So nice 3 sad endings to that. Another interesting thing I think that this covers, my final like overall interesting thing about Old Dragon's Tale, is that there's a very not subtle. There's a few mentions of the magic of the humans eclipsing the magic of the gods or whatever. And this is like another potential. First, it could be a thematic thing about like how the power of the human spirit or whatever. But it could also be a lore like hint or whatever as to where the man god came from. Like maybe the man god was a human who like eclipsed the power of the gods by using magic or technology. But anyway, the two examples I have here is that one, when the dragon god and the demon god are fighting, the way the dragon god beats the demon god is by using magic circles, which is like a human invention. I think it's a human invention. Well, I guess technically it's like probably a human god invention, but maybe it came from the, I don't remember. Basically, it's like he's using magic circles, which are like mostly used by humans or whatever, or non-gods. And also you got the dragon generals at the end. When they're attacking the dragon god, they use magic and technology to kind of get to the level of the dragon god, or at least attack him or successfully attack him at some point. So there is like the hints of like humans are able to defeat these gods, and maybe that's how the man god did it. But anyway, those are my overall thoughts for Old Dragon's Tale. Now I have a few miscellaneous notes here. So let's see. Number one, there's... This is a silly point. I probably should have got rid of this. I said there's probably an interesting connection to be made between Laplace from Old Dragon's Tale and Guts from Berserk. Now, I don't know if I stand by this. I said, born in dark circumstances, growing up with a harsh, lonesome life, you have both inherently being good people, you have being taken under the wing of an all-knowing / guiding god person. So you got the dragon god and you've got Griffith as well. And then things turn to tragedy in the end. So I think that last point is like doing a lot of the heavy lifting. But yeah, there's, some parallels, kind of interesting. Another miscellaneous note is that it's interesting how much time is spent in this story on the training of Celiac, I think it was, the red dragon. Yeah, it's like a sizable chunk of this. I don't know how much, maybe like 2 hours or an hour and a half or something is spent purely with Laplace and Celiac, like developing that bond and talking about Laplace training him. And it's kind of interesting. And it really feels like a big element of this story. There are themes, which I'm going to talk about in a video, so I don't want to talk about them here. But one of the themes is about like the universal good nature of people, or the ability to communicate with anyone. Like, I guess understanding is like a big theme of this. And it gets like brought out in this like Laplace training Celiac here. And he says that he has like a quote here where he says, the experience of living as a feral child in the demon world may have come in handy. I realized that the dragon was just frightened. I tried something other than a beating. So unfortunately, I didn't learn the first lesson of this job, that some dragons would never submit. In fact, I still think that way, that it's possible to communicate with every dragon. Yeah, so that was an interesting thing where it's like Laplace learns the lesson that you can try and you can try and understand everyone, which is also interesting to think about. Maybe that will be how the man god is kind of, maybe there is even reasoning with the man god. I think it's just kind of interesting, and even point something out later about how, I have the quote here somewhere. Let me see if I can find it. He says, however, the chances of victory are slim. We do not know why he takes the form of the human god and possesses the power of the gods. We must unravel that mystery, or defeat is inevitable. And that kind of, it could just be like a lore thing where it's like, oh my god, to beat the man god, we have to understand how his powers work. Or it could be more of a thing leading into his experience with Celiac in this, where it's like this otherwise feral dragon that no one thought could be understood and no one thought could be tamed. If only you tried to understand it a little bit, maybe you would be able to tame it. Like maybe you would be able to understand the man god if you actually tried to understand him, I'm interested. I don't know where the sequel story of Mushoku Tensei is going, but maybe that will be an element of it, and I think that would be really cool. And it would tie in with Laplace here a little bit. So anyway, what else? Let's see. I love how Laplace is portrayed as the complete opposite to our expectations. Yeah. So going into this, you think I thought of Laplace as like a ruthless, like crazy. Even before he was split, like he's a ruthless person who is just all about like traveling the world and leaving behind like dragon rune knowledge or whatever. Like he didn't seem like this like nice person who was just living a happy life with Rostalina. Like I love the subversion of expectations here, and I also like how sad he's like betrayed or whatever. And I have a quote here, which is that, as you know, I don't like feeling alone. My life now is full of anxiety and frustration. I might get crushed if I'm alone. And that's like the complete opposite to the Laplace that we know throughout Mushoku Tensei, or have heard of so much, so I think it's just so cool to see this. And this is what I was talking about before. So when he's like talking, I love how Rostalina is kind of like looking after him and like patting him on the shoulder and being like, are you sure you want to keep going or whatever, when he's talking about Lunaria's death. And he says, she was always there when I returned home, smiling so gently, listening to my stories, a goddess of compassion, to be so cruelly murdered. That experience on that horrible day, even now, woo, Laplace cried. With a hand covering his eyes, he bent down, his shoulders shivering. With a slight sob, he cried. Rostalina quietly watched as the man twice her size sobbed in front of her. So love it. I love this portrayal of Laplace. It's so cool. Then we have, I love the first appearance of the human god and the way Laplace like describes it, where he's kind of like building it up, where I wish I don't have an actual quote here, but he builds it up and is like, if only I could have gone back to that moment, and if only we realized what we were dealing with, and I would never have like talked to this man or whatever. And then you reveal that it's like the human god is like standing in front of him, and it's a great, it's handled really well. So anyway, there's also an interesting thing in this story, which is, I don't think it really amounts to much, but the dragons are long-lived races, the dragons and the demons particularly. So this story spans very long periods of time. Like even Laplace just learning how to fly, I think takes decades, and it's a very slow story. And I think even Rostalina's like listening to Laplace's story, I think that even takes decades or maybe hundreds of years even, because she goes from being like a little girl to becoming like a full like woman. So it would take a long time. And it's just interesting. You don't need something like that here, but they add it here for some reason. So it was kind of cool. Oh, and like even for instance, when Laplace is fighting, I think it was not Necros Lacrosse, whoever the other one is, the guy he actually fights, and the fight lasts for 10 days basically. Or maybe it was Necros Lacrosse. I don't know, whoever it was, they fight for a very long time, like non-stop, and it's like, wow, this is really interesting to make these fights so long. Now in a book, it's really easy because you just go, and the fight lasted for 10 days, but in reality, it's kind of funny to think about. It's also interesting how society in the Dragon World is changed from the beginning to the end of the story, true, all because of the war with the Demon World. Because that war, I think, lasts like hundreds of years or something. So yeah, it's kind of interesting. The other thing, which because I love how do I even describe this? I love characters that do terribly evil things because I can hate them passionately. And when I read this, I hate the Dragon God for what he does to the other worlds, like the genocides he commits. And I think it's so effective and evocative at like generating hatred in me because of the way it's described. It's like a one-sided complete massacre. And I have a long quote here again. All right, we're getting there. Second last note. So neither their claws nor their fangs nor their weapons could pierce the bodies of the 5 dragon generals, and our bodies repelled their voice magic. When we struck the ground, mountains flew apart. When we swung our claws, forests were mowed down. With each blow, 100 beastmen were blown away and killed. It was slaughter. 5 dragonkind slaughtered hundreds of thousands of beast tribes. Perhaps had their numbers been greater and they possessed strength as a group, they could have made a stand. Not a single beast was able to inflict even the slightest wound on any of the 5 dragon generals. So it's a complete one-sided genocide, and it is terrible. Very evocative for generating hatred. Anyway, now I have my last note. What is this? This is just the premise of this story, once again, is very, very cool. Because throughout Mushoku Tensei, there is one story that we keep hearing repeatedly. It's the one, like, big, unreliable narrator thing that Mushoku Tensei does, which is hearing the story of, what was it? I think it was the Golden Knight Aldebaran versus, like, the dragon, maybe Dragon God Laplace or something. Like, you hear that story told a bit unreliably and with different like characters involved, and sometimes you mention it's the fighting god, sometimes you mention it's like Golden Knight Aldebaran, and sometimes you mention like the Dragon God, and sometimes you mention like Kisharika, I think is like mentioned as one of the fighters at some point. And it's cool to kind of spread that, like never get like a proper resolution to that. I guess technically you get it in the Batagati like perspective chapter later, but to get it fully fleshed out to this degree in an entire new story is kind of really cool, and I like that. So yeah, that is Old Dragon's Tale, a 5 out of 5. If you've read Mushoku Tensei and for some reason you've been sitting off reading Old Dragon's Tale, read it. It's a really good story. Anyway, next up we have Heavenly Delusion. So this was, I guess technically I watched this once, and then I rewatched it as well, all in a single month. So that's why it says Heavenly Delusion plus a rewatch. And this is an anime. It's 13 episodes long, and I watched it. Well, I just put the 18th of February because that's when I finished it for the first time. I may have watched it in a single day. I don't remember, or it might have been 2 days, but anyway, 18th of February. Now, before I give my thoughts on this, I want to have some pre-thoughts, which is the number one. It's on Disney Plus, which is terrible. And don't get me wrong, I like streaming services. Disney Plus is great or whatever. The reason it's terrible is that they have this like annoying copyright protection, which is that whenever you watch in like a Firefox browser, which doesn't have, I haven't enabled like the DRM protection or whatever, it gets played on a very low quality. So it's like 720p or something instead of like, I'd like 4K honestly, but it's not even 1080p, and it looks really blurry and I don't like it. Anyway, first thought. Second thing is that basically I have had Heavenly Delusion on my list for quite a while, ever since it was airing basically, because I saw this one tweet which had like, it's like a nice, in tweets you can have 4 images in like a box or whatever, and they looked so cool. Like the directing, or what do you even call it, the storyboarding, I guess, looked really cool. And ever since then I wanted to watch it. And then a few months ago, Jarky Bacon recommended it. Like he said he binged it and he put it on he commented it down below, as you do, and he recommended that I watch it. And then I did a poll on the YouTube members, which if you pay $3 a month, you can vote on polls like this. And Heavenly Delusion won because, all the members, one member at the time, voted for it, and I watched it. So anyway, I watched the dub as well, which is what Jarky Bacon recommended, which I think is really great. The dub is great in this. And yeah, so those are my pre-thoughts. Now, my actual thoughts on Heavenly Delusion. This is a 5 out of 5, no question. I'm sure you can tell because I rewatched it. This is one of the best anime I have seen in many years. I enjoy this a lot. This was really good. So that's what I think. Now, let's go through my actual overall thought and notes. Let's see. It has a lot of intriguing mysteries. It has a lot of great plot twists. It has a world that feels very large and alive in a very similar manner to Mushoku Tensei, which is what I like about that anime. It has cute characters. It has 2 different storylines, which are both equally interesting, which is a rare thing. And it has a lot of horrifying moments as well. So this is like everything that I love, all right? Science fiction, drama, emotional moments, great animation. This is everything I ever want from a story, okay? It's fantastic. Yeah, I said it's also really well made. It's got cool directing, cool animation, cool music. The opening is really good. Like even this first image on the left here is a screenshot from the opening where they're like running and the cool music is playing. I love it. And it has a really good dub as well. Now, when I say a good dub, I haven't seen the original, so who knows how accurate it is, but the performances are they feel great. So I like them. Like you feel the emotions from them, which is what you want. Now, I have an interesting thing to say about this, or 2 interesting things, which is that I've briefly looked at the manga. Because obviously I love this. It was really great. And there's a lot of mysteries. And if I keep reading the manga, it could be interesting. So I read like a few chapters. And from what I can tell, I think I don't like Heavenly Delusion as a property. I like Heavenly Delusion, the anime. When I'm reading the manga, it feels a lot cheesier and childish. And it doesn't have the same like gravitas, I guess is the best word I can come up with, as the anime. The anime feels very serious. It feels very prestigious in the way it's like directed and stuff. And it feels kind of, it has that gravitas that the manga just doesn't. So yeah, that's basically, this is me just saying that I'm not going to read the manga, but I feel like I also wouldn't like the manga generally. I don't like Heavenly Delusion. I like the Heavenly Delusion anime specifically. So anyway, another thing I have to say is that by the end of this show, I do think that this season is going to be the best season of this show. I think it's impossible to have answers to the remaining questions that are going to be satisfying. I think this is going to be ultimately a very similar thing to The Promised Neverland, where you get some answers. They're like somewhat interesting, but they're not really anything special. And I think this season of the show will be the best that the show is ever going to be. So that's generally what I think about it, which is fine. Like this as itself is a 5 out of 5, 10 out of 10 on my anime list. It'd probably be in my like top 5 anime of all time. I love it. But only for one season. Anyway. And my last like overall thought is that this is going to be a tough thing to beat this year. So obviously you can probably tell if you go to the rankings at the end of this list, it's number 1, the best thing I've seen this year. It's going to be very tough to maybe Look Back and Do It, the movie that's coming out. Maybe Chainsaw Man, the anime, if that's coming out this year. The movie, sorry, if that's coming this year. But we'll see. Anyway, that's my overall thoughts for Heavenly Delusion. Let's go into the miscellaneous notes. The first thing is I got to make a comparison here. It's very Promised Neverland-y. Which is, I mean, if you've seen this, it's pretty obvious. You have 2 storylines, which, Promised Neverland has 1 storyline, but basically you have these kids in heaven and heaven is like I'm doing a poor job of explaining this parallel. Basically, The Promised Neverland is like a bunch of kids in an orphanage and they can't leave the orphanage and you don't really know what's going on outside the orphanage. And you kind of find out at the end of episode 1 that there's like demons or whatever. In this show, you got these kids who are in this like closed off place and you don't really know what's going on and they seem to have like special powers or something and there's like an AI or something and something weird's going on. And at the same time, you're seeing this outside their heaven, like outside that facility storyline, which is a bunch of demons that are like taking over the world. And you're like, oh my God, this is just like The Promised Neverland. So anyway, that's my one comparison I want to make. But it's even better than The Promised Neverland. Don't get me wrong. I love The Promised Neverland season 1. It's probably 4 out of 5 or something, but this is even better than that because it has the added elements of the kids actually like they're characters. In The Promised Neverland, there's 3 characters, right? Well, there's in fairness, there's probably like 4 or 5, whatever. But there's what are they? Emma, Ray, and Smart Kid, whatever he was. I don't remember his name. And then you've also got like the 2 other like kids who aren't those main 3. But they're like in The Promised Neverland. What you're really doing is like planning to escape, and there's not much like character development or anything. The only real thing you get is that like Emma is a very motherly figure or whatever. Like she's always looking after the kids or whatever. And that's like her whole character, which is to me not interesting at all. In this, you've got like, you got kids that are like, don't know what love is. And they like learn what love is. And like, they have like no concept of gender, and they're like developing concepts of gender and stuff, and it's just so much more interesting of an idea to have like these kids who aren't exposed to like these ideas that normal people are exposed to and have to like kind of learn them over time gradually. I think it's really interesting. And then we find out eventually that this is taking place in the past, and what's happening in the other storyline is the present, and these kids have also become adults, and they have been integrated into this story, and we just didn't know it until it gets revealed later, which is really great. So yeah, anyway, that's one thing. Very Promised Neverlandy, but done even better. Next thing, the OP is gorgeous, but what's strange about it is that for an otherwise like almost perfect opening, which I think is fantastic, there's miscellaneous like shots of like video game consoles, or it's like the same anime, like this anime, but in like there's like this one shot where it's like them running in a Game Boy Advance or not Game, whatever, like GameCube or something. I don't know. It's like so weird. It's like out of place for an otherwise like perfect opening. So I don't know what happened there, but anyway. Another miscellaneous note. I love that there is no censorship of violence here. There's a lot of violence. You see it, it's gruesome, and you get to feel the impact of it. It's not like censored, which is just so annoying in other shows. Even things like Attack on Titan, which censor the violence like so annoyingly. So I'm glad to see that there was no censorship here. A big thing in this is that you find out that this main girl, I think her name was Kiriko? I actually don't remember. I wrote them down. So whatever, the main girl, she is actually her brother's brain in her body. So yeah, it's just like a horrifying reveal where the brother is like attacked by a man-eater, his lower half is missing, and then you go to a next scene and they're in a hospital and the brother wakes up and he's alive and his sister's dead and he's in her body, and you're like, oh god, this is like horrifying. Like his brain has forcibly been moved into another body, and like it's disgusting and horrifying, and a great like horror reveal, I guess, that happens in this. Because initially when they reveal, the way this reveal is handled is that at the end of one episode, the girl is like telling the person she's escorting, she's like, oh, but I'm a guy, you know, I have a guy's brain in a girl's body or whatever. And you're like, oh, okay, it's going to be some like take on like, on transitioning to male to female, whatever. It's going to be like something about transness. But then you find out it's like, it's horrifying. So it's a great kind of horrifying reveal to what you otherwise think is not going to be as horrifying as it is. So that was kind of really cool. I also feel a lot of Evangelion inspiration, where you've obviously got these angels equivalents. Like you got in Evangelion, you have angels that are showing up and like destroying humanity. Here you've got the man-eaters that are showing up and destroying humanity. And there's kind of no theme to them. They can be animals, they can be weird shapes, and yeah, so it's kind of cool. I like that parallel. There's also the fact that the baby man-eaters, which are like these kids when they're babies, they look a lot like Lilith or Adam or whatever, like that white thing that's like pinned up in Evangelion. So there's a similarity there, which I think is like an intention. It has to be like an intentional thing. So anyway, yeah, my voice is going. All right, we've been recording for a while. I love the Heaven storyline where Shiro, who's this guy, when he's trying to explain, he's in love with Mimihime, this girl, and he just doesn't know how to explain it because he doesn't know what love is, because he's never been taught the concept of love. And he's like, he wants to lock her up, he wants to touch her and maybe lick her. And he's like, and also at the same time when he's describing this, he's like, oh, it's not quite right. I can't get it. I can't explain it because he's never been taught what it means. And I think that's really cool. It's a cool story thing. There's a great joke in this where they're running away from the bear and they're like on a pillar. And the girl to the guy who's like gonna save them or whatever, she's like, oh, I'll let you touch my boobs if you, and then he like instantly leaps down and like saves her from the bear or whatever, and it's a funny gag. I like that. There's a great reveal. This is a terrible review. If you haven't seen the show, you're probably like, I have no idea what Ari's saying. Go watch the show. Go watch it. 13 episodes. Go watch it, all right? But for anyone who has seen the show, the Asura reveal. Asura is this like another one of these kids who her like special power or whatever is that they gave her a really big brain, like she was really smart basically. And throughout the story, throughout this like Heaven flashbacks, you hear a lot about Azura. Like they always mention, oh, I miss Azura. Oh, you loved Azura, didn't you? Oh, if only Azura was here, whatever. You hear it a few times. And then you get the reveal of her where I think she was like, she's floating above the bed where Tokyo, who's the main girl, like the main girl in the flashbacks, she like wakes up and hears Azura and you're like, oh my God, this is Azura. And then you pan to her and she's terrified. Like she looks scary. She looks like an alien with like a giant like head that's like bulging outwards, and like she has alien features and stuff. And it's like, oh my God, what happened to this kid? Like what did they do to this kid for her to look like this? That's another like horrifying reveal, I think, or a scary reveal. But the thing is that she's it's a shock to see her, but otherwise she seems like a very nice person. And also you do get a brief, you get like one shot of her when she's like a tiny little child, and it's incredibly cute. Like she doesn't, she looks like deformed, but she's like holding the kid's the other, her like not boyfriend but the guy she likes, whatever, they're holding hands, and she's got like a giant dress or robe or whatever, and it's just so cute, it's so adorable. But yeah, I love the Azura reveal, that was really cool. Yeah, then another very miscellaneous note, but the first time you see Mimi Hime in the future, so she's like she's been hacked into like a million pieces, and she's basically just the torso and a head that's like surviving. And the first time you see her and you hear the electronic voice saying "Please let me die," that's another horrifying thing to this. I love the horror in this show, it's so great. Like reveals like that just come out of nowhere, where it's like this woman has been hacked to a million pieces. She wants to die, but they're not letting her die. And it's just such a great reveal. Now, obviously, that's not what's actually happening, but the way it's revealed feels like that, and it's really cool. All right, now we have basically the Immortal Order storyline, which, you know, I love this. All right, it's probably why I got the picture here of Shiro and Mimihime here, which is that we find out that basically we don't actually let me say, the first time you're watching through, you have an old doctor guy, surgeon guy, whatever, who is the head of this like organization that is called the Immortal Order. And then there's this woman who he is keeping alive by like, he's basically got a million tubes in her and is like forcing her to stay alive. And the mission of the main characters is basically to go in and like take out a man-eater so that the protesters can go in and save her, basically, and like stop the evil of this Immortal Order or whatever. Then you get the reveal that he's not the surgeon doctor guy is like he's not keeping her alive like to make her suffer or to like worship her or something. He's keeping her alive because if he doesn't, she's going to turn into a man-eater, and she's going to like lose all her dignity and memories, and she might even kill people. So you get that reveal, which is really great. And then you get like a whole storyline where at the end, Maru shows up and uses his like Maru touch or whatever and like kills her. And then you get like this sad music playing, and the doctor's crying, and then you read out the message from the woman who was like communicating with a tablet, and the message is like, thank you for giving me your eye, and I love you, and like and she's basically just thanking him for a bunch of stuff and what blah blah blah. And it's like sad, and I'm like, oh, this is sad, and if I was like invested in this, I'd probably be crying or whatever. But it kind of feels like it's like they're adding too much emotion to these random characters that we just met, and I'm like, I get it. Like for some people, this is probably a really good scene, but to me, I'm like, okay, like I get it. We're doing the emotional thing with the music and everything, and I didn't really feel it. And then you get to the end of the show and you realize that it's these two. It's Mimihime and Shiro. And the Heaven storyline takes place in the past, and we saw them die. And they're like these two innocent kids who discover what it means to love each other, and they're like, and then just like they're full of life and joy and everything. And to see how sad and depressing their end is, where one of them has been like amputated beyond like any reasonable degree, and is killed and is suffering and is saying things like, please let me die, in a robotic voice, and she gets killed, and then Shiro kills himself because he can't live with it anymore, and hearing those last messages from her where it's like, thank you for giving me a ride, and thank you for looking after me, and I love you and all that. And my god, was I wrong about this artificial emotion, because my god, is the emotion there. I cried so much watching that scene for sure. And it only works on the second watch when you know that these are the characters who they are. I love it. It's the highlight of the show by far. It's fantastic. What a cool reveal that you can only experience once when you don't know who they are, and you find out who they are, and then you watch it again and it's so much sadder. It's fantastic. Anyway. So that's I wanted to mention that. Another thing in the Immortal Order storyline, I really like how it's just so depressing. Like Shiro's life, like when he becomes the doctor. No, he's not even a doctor. It's just an inventor, and he's a nice person. But he has this one scene where they're walking through the Immortal Order, and like all these people are asking for questions, asking for things, because he's made them like robotic arms and stuff. And there's like a girl who, like a little girl, like a 5-year-old girl or something, and she's like, and the mum is like, oh, she can't figure out like how to adjust the pressure. Can you help her or whatever? And he's like, she'll figure out with time. And then someone else shows up, and basically everyone is like asking him questions while he's like walking through, and he just like shrugs them off, and he says it will never end. And it's so depressing. It's like this person who wants to help people, he's given up on it all. Like if he tries to help here, they're just going to keep barraging him with questions, and it's so depressing to see like the end of this otherwise very joyful kid here. It's just so sad. Oh yeah, thank you for giving me your eye. Thank you for everything. My God. And also, yeah, back to that thing about it will never end. He also says it was about her, not them. I am not a doctor. It's just so sad how his life turned out. So I love it. I love the sadness, right? Anyway, then we have, oh yeah, so this was more of an issue the first time I was watching through, which is that I was hoping that we'd get a complete wrap up to the entire story by the end of the finale, sorry, the end of the 13th episode. But we don't. And what it really feels like when you're watching this is that they're kind of setting up like larger stories. For instance, you meet I think they call her the King of Hotels or something like that. And it feels like, she says that basically she's going to dedicate her life to like owning all these hotels and building up a nice empire. And it's like, it feels like, it's going to take quite a few years. It's going to be a long running story, isn't it? Because obviously we're going to meet her like later on in her life, like when she's done all that. And there's also the protesters like protesting the Immortal Order. Like they take over the building and it feels like stuff is still going on there. So there's like an unresolved storyline there. And as I'm watching, I'm like, oh my God, we're not going to resolve this by the end of the season, aren't we? And we don't. But the thing is, like by the end of the season, I think you get a nice wrap up to both the Heaven storyline where you can fill in the blanks of like what will happen and lead to this like apocalypse. And you've also got the wrap up to the Robin storyline. And you also know who the Doctor is. I don't know if I have this in my notes, but no, I have it in my theories. We'll talk about my theories, but you find out who the Doctor is, and that kind of is like somewhat resolved as well. Like there's a few lingering mysteries, but by the time you get to the end of this season, it's somewhat like good enough where I could, if it never got any more future seasons, I'd be fine with it. Although I would love future seasons, there are still some mysteries I'm very much interested in, but anyway. I also have a specific note on episode 10, which is, to me, it felt like it was very special. Like it looked like they must have got like a special director to do this one, because this was the episode, and I had realized as soon as I saw it, like there was some clips I saw, initially when I was mentioning how I first heard about the show, I saw a tweet with like a bunch of like screenshots. It was from this episode, because as soon as I saw those shots in this, I was like, whoa, this is so cool. I remember this. So I don't know, whoever they got for this episode, I imagine it's some special person. It has to be, because of just how different it felt. It was great. So well done to that person. Mimi Hime, she's probably my favorite character. I love her. Her storyline with basically that you get this new generation of children in heaven, like these new 5-year-olds, and Mimi Hime is like older at this point. I don't know if she's like 10 or 15 or whatever. And she has a storyline with the girl who's wearing glasses, like the little girl, the sunglasses. And whenever she takes off the glasses, like Mimi Hime sees a vision of her getting stabbed with needles and like dying or whatever, which is funny because eventually that's what actually happens to her in reality. But anyway. What I like about this storyline is that it's just such a cute, like I've seen it a million times before, like old person suffers but endears themselves to the younger person or whatever. Mimi Hime, she forces herself to like suffer through the visions that she's seeing so that she can give the girl comfort, who is afraid because whenever she takes the glasses off, everyone hates her because she like forces visions in them. And it's just so cute. But the cutest scene is when after they've like resolved that and they've hugged each other, and it's like, you don't have to be afraid of like showing yourself to me or whatever, because I can take anything. Later on, they meet each other again at the pool, like in the pool scene. And it's just so cute where the little girl gets so excited when she sees Mimi Hime, because Mimi Hime is like this older like teenager or whatever, but she's like the one person who she doesn't have to be afraid around anymore, because Mimi Hime is able to like suffer through the visions that she forces on her. It's just so cute. Just seeing how excited the little girl was when Mimi Hime shows up was so cute. So I like that storyline. Then we have the Robin reveal, which is that Robin. Oh, how do I even give context here? I wish I wrote stuff down. Basically, in the flashbacks to the main storyline, the main character, whatever her name was, in the flashbacks, there's a girl and her brother. Basically, like I said before, the brother's brain gets put in the girl's body. So in the flashbacks, the brother has like an older mentor who's like in his 20s or something, I assume, whose name is Robin. And that person, he basically looks up to him so much, and that guy Robin basically is looking after their orphanage, and he protects them, and he goes out and hunts the man-eaters, and he's basically Maru's the guy's inspiration, the young kid's inspiration. Like he beats up the people who are gonna beat him up, and yeah, basically he's the inspiration. And one of the storylines that we follow is basically the search for Robin in the present, because Robin disappeared, and for a time they thought he was dead, but no, they never really got a confirmation of his death, so he might be out there. So basically they're searching for Robin. And at the end of this season, they come across each other, like the main guy or girl, I guess, runs into Robin, and then you find out that Robin is a rapist, basically, and Robin rapes him or her, and it's just it's a visceral, disgusting like reveal, because it's like, this is the man that he looked up to as a child, the man who would like save him from the fights and all the bad stuff that was going to happen to him, and here he is like raping him, and it's so viscerally like disgusting and very evocative. I think it's fantastic. This is a great reveal, and a great like terrible thing that happens to these characters. I love it. But yeah, the thing is that what's interesting is that it reframes everything about Robin, like in the previous scenes, where like even on the second rewatch, like the first thing you see of Robin is that he comes in and he saves the main guy from getting beat up by these like people who are faking like gambling tickets or whatever. And the way, like initially you're like, oh my god, this is so great, Robin's fantastic, he's coming in, saving the day. And on a rewatch, you're like, Robin is like beating this man to death, like stomping on his head where there's so much blood pooling on the ground, and you're like, there's something wrong with him. Like Robin is a disgusting person already, you can see it. But it's so different how the two, after you get the contextualization of him being a rapist, going back and seeing those scenes is so much different. So anyway, that was a cool thing. But it also, it basically, another thing that happens at the end of this story concerning Robin is that Maru beats up Robin at the end. Like basically just dominates him in a fight where he can't even escape a corner. Every time he tries to run, he just like pushes him back in the corner and then punches him. And then the main guy, like main character shows up and is like, who is being raped by Robin, and he's like, don't kill him, please don't kill him or whatever. And it's so sad in that moment because she clearly can't cope with the entire reframing of her entire relationship with Robin in the past, because like this is the Robin who would always protect her by fighting. Like Robin was the strongest fighter she knew. Now Robin, the strong fighter, not only just raped you, but is now losing a fight, being utterly crushed in a fight to your friend. So it's like everything about this man. It's not just like he was a rapist, but he also saved me back in the day. He was a rapist and now he's not even a good, like, he couldn't even save me now if he wanted to. Like, he's losing to my friend here in a fight. Like, it just devalues every positive memory she had of him. Like, he couldn't even defend himself in the end, which is what she liked about him back in the day. I probably haven't explained that well, but it's so viscerally, like, saddening. And the fact that she's saying not to kill him because she just can't cope with like this like quick change in like everything that had led up to this moment. Like she'd have to rethink everything about Robin. Yeah, I think it's great. The Robin stuff is another, like, up there with the Mumihime Shiro like death scene. I think the Robin stuff is really up there in terms of like visceral emotion and just bad feelings in a good way, because I love when shows do that, you know. Now, I have one disappointment in this, which is I think that these disappointments will probably pile up as the seasons go on, if there are more seasons, but one of the reveals to the mysteries, which is one of the grand mysteries, is like, what is heaven and why does it exist? Now, the reveal you get is that the director of heaven, this old lady in a wheelchair, wants to be immortal, and she's kind of crazy, and like she's like a cult-like figure or whatever, and she wants to create these perfect children so that she can brain transplant into their bodies or whatever and live forever. And it's kind of like an unsatisfying answer to a question of like, what is this facility? It would have been better, I think, if they just didn't answer it and they just left it open and made it like a government project or something. I think that would have been more interesting than this like wacky old lady who just wants to live forever. So that's my one disappointment in this otherwise perfect show. I love this show. We'll have to see. We'll see how time goes on, but it might be up there as a contender for my favorite anime. We'll see. I love this show. It is probably recency bias though, you know. Mob Psycho is pretty great. Anyway, now we have some theories to end up my Heavenly Delusion section here. So I have a few theories that I am basically 100% correct on. Like I'm almost certainly sure that these are correct. Number one, Shiro and Mimihime were Dr. Usami and the Dying Woman. I'm like 100% sure that is what that is. That has to be a thing. Another thing I'm basically 100% sure about is that Mina, which is the AI in heaven, Mina is shaping the world towards some anti-human end. Like, basically, all the stuff that's going on, all the weird stuff with the cameras and everything, that's all Mina. And Mina is obviously, like, these children are children of Mina, right? Like, Mina gives birth to them. Mina knows that they're going to turn into man-eaters. Obviously, Mina is, like, trying to shape the world towards humanity's doom or something. That's pretty obvious to me. That's also, I'm basically 100% sure that's going to happen. Another thing is that the brain transplanter guy in heaven, like the doctor with the glasses, whose name is Dr. Sawatari, I'm almost 100% certain that is the doctor who does the transplant to Haruki's brain. That's right, that's their name, Haruki and Kiriko. Yeah, because basically another element to finding, where one storyline is we're trying to find Robin in the future. like these two. But they're also trying to find the doctor who did the brain transplant. And I'm 100% certain almost that that would be Dr. Sawatari from Heaven, just older. And the reason I think that is that he gets like injured at the final episode, and he has like he's bleeding from his head here, and he also wears glasses. And the doctor in the present has like a massive scar here, and he also wears glasses. So I'm pretty sure that's him. That's another thing. Another thing I'm basically 100% certain on is that one of the kids is called Cuckoo, and she can climb like walls. That's the one thing we've seen of her. I'm like 100% certain that she is the fish man-eater. We get like a fish man-eater pretty early on where they're on a ship and the fish is like climbing walls. And I'm almost 100% certain that's her. Firstly, the kid who does drawings in Heaven, there's like a kid who draws the future or has like really good senses or something and draws something. Or maybe he just draws man-eaters or something. I don't know. But he draws a picture of a fish, which is the man-eater we eventually see that is a fish. And he gives that picture to Cuckoo. So it's like, okay, obviously she's going to become that fish or whatever. And there's also the fact I just said, which is that Cuckoo like climbs up the wall in that episode. And in that same episode, we get the very similar kind of framing of the fish climbing up the wall like that. So I was 100% sure that that fish has to be Cuckoo. Another thing I'm almost basically sure about, which is that the kids will become man-eaters. Like I just said, Cuckoo became a man-eater. I'm pretty sure the kids will also become, like all these kids eventually will become man-eaters. If they catch the disease, which is what Shiro said. So I'm pretty sure that's going to happen. Now, stuff I'm less confident about, so this could happen or it could not, but I have theories about this, which might happen. One is that Robin, in the flashback, I think Robin would have killed Kiriko, the sister, by shooting her. Because basically when the brother is like being eaten by a man-eater and half his lower body is missing, the girl is all fine and she's like about to, like she's hugging her brother and everything, and the man-eater's walking away, and then you hear a gunshot and you never find out like why did the sister suddenly, who was otherwise in good health, why did she suddenly die? And I think what it is that Robin shot her, probably by accident is what I'm thinking. We'll see. Another thing, we also get a very brief few mentions of someone called Mikura, who was the person who had the gun initially that was given to Kiriko. And she like died of the same disease that the kids are dying of. So initially I thought, okay, maybe she's one of the children. But then I had the thought that they have a very brief mention, the president of Heaven, the old lady in the wheelchair, gives a very brief mention of these special agents that they've sent out to go to places or like invade somewhere. And she shows the prototype of the gun that is what they're using here. So I feel like maybe the special agents that the woman is talking about are actually the genetically engineered kids of another generation, like maybe older than these kids. And I think maybe one of those special agents was Mikura, and maybe that's where they got the gun from. So I think Mikura, my theory is that Mikura is one of those special agents, basically. And those special agents are kids, and that's why she gets the disease and dies of it and becomes a man-eater or whatever. Another thing is that I wouldn't be surprised. Oh, this is another thing, which we also learned that Robin spent some time at the Immortal Order, and he knew these two. He knew the professor and he knew the woman who was dying. Now, my other theory is that I wouldn't be surprised if Robin also raped Mimihime during his time at the Immortal Order. Because initially, when Kiriko mentions the Immortal Order, I think initially, like one of the first things is like, oh, how's the woman doing? Is the woman alive or whatever? And to me, it kind of feels like he's trying to suss out if like she said anything about him, or if like, yeah, because I feel like maybe he would have raped her too. So I don't know. And obviously she can't really say anything. I guess she could have afterwards on the iPad or whatever, but on the tablet, but I don't know. That's just like a weird theory I have. Could happen, could not be a thing. And then we have the whole Azura thing, which is that Azura is trying to teach the kids. There's Azura and there's the kid who draws things. And Azura is trying to teach the kid who draws things how to like visualize things in his mind. And when he's doing that, the kid like visualizes a sort of light, is what he says. And then in reality, one of the kids who were like playing in the playground, his leg cuts open. So clearly something he was visualizing became reality. And I think that's basically what's happening with the man-eaters. I think this kid is like drawing the man-eaters in his drawings, and because of like what he just did with the sort of light, I think he's actually creating the man-eaters by drawing those things. So that's what I think. Another theory is that I think Azura, who's the really big brain alien-looking girl, I think she's going to be the key to undermining the AI's plan, like Mina's plan, because there's only one time in this entire show that we see the security cameras malfunction like improperly or whatever. Usually what we see is that there's basically the security of the place is run by the AI, by Mina. And whenever Mina is trying to hide something, she like plays old footage of like, say, Tokyo sleeping, when in fact Tokyo isn't sleeping in her bed. Tokyo is having sex with the other kid, right? So whenever we see something that's not quite right, it's the AI that's showing it to us. They're showing Tokyo sleeping when she's not there. However, there's one exception to this scene, to that, which is that we see, I think it's the kid, the whatever, the drawing kid, the friend of Azura. He's like awake and he's talking to no one. And then the security cameras see that. You actually see the guy talking in the camera for a second, and then it cuts out. And I'm pretty sure that's Azura who is cutting out the cameras there, not Mina. So I think what's happening is that at that point, Mina also mentions that I have come to not Mina, sorry. Azura mentions I have come to understand why I was born. So now I have come to say goodbye. So I think at this point, when she's having that conversation, Azura has already figured out that the AI is using these kids to destroy humanity. So Azura has come up with a counter plan of like how to address, like how to actually solve this in the future, and has come to the kid, Kona, I think is his name, the drawing kid, and turned off the cameras, which is what the evidence we see there, of the camera shutting off and not being Mina in that situation who's doing it. And I think, yeah, at that point she's come up with some plan to kind of undo the path that the AI has set humanity on, and then she goes and kills herself, whatever. So that's my theory. Azura will be the key to solving the world or solving the AI conundrum. Two more things here, right? We're getting there. The mother of the ice man-eater. Oh yeah, so there's a baby in this which is a man-eater, and it turns things to ice. And unless I'm forgetting something, we never get a resolution to why this random baby is a man-eater. So my theory is that maybe one of the new 5-year-olds had a kid, and then that kid is like the mother of this new baby who's a man-eater. So I don't know, something, that's what I'm guessing. And then the final note here, which is that Robin began his human man-eater experiments. Oh yeah, this is a theory that at the end of the season, we find out that Robin had been experimenting with man-eaters, and he had a man-eater hooked up to a woman, and they were like joined together, and the woman's mind had disappeared, but she was still alive. And we also find out, like a few times mentioned, that Robin spent some time at the Immortal Order, where I theorized that he like raped Mimi, but whatever, that's beside the point. Robin spent some time there, but at the same time, there's also the rumor that was started about the Immortal Order, which is that it can graft man-eaters to human bodies to give them immortality and gain powers. But Shiro wasn't aware of that rumor, or someone, or maybe not Shiro, maybe not Shiro. The protesters weren't aware of that rumor. So I think maybe the rumor started based on Robin doing experiments while he was at the Immortal Order. So that's another theory I had. Anyway. Now, just to wrap it up, where I have one more thing, which is that I have some my actual initial thoughts on my first watch through. Firstly, I did theorize at some point. It was like episode 6 or 7 or something. I did theorize that heaven is probably in the past, and we're probably seeing like something like we're seeing heaven in the past and this new stuff in the future. It did not even cross my mind that because it's in the past, the kids would be older now. We might actually be seeing the kids. So I didn't realize that this is like these two in the future or anything, until the last episode where she gives the pin or the button or whatever. Anyway, my major theory here, I'll read it out. I said the man-eaters are the real. So basically, I was thinking that Heavenly Delusion, the title, was actually referring to this stuff in heaven here, which is just the delusion of the man-eaters. So basically, I thought that there's man-eaters traveling the world, and those man-eaters are having a collective delusion that they're actually still human, and they're in this place called heaven. So I thought that's what the Heavenly Delusion was going to be, but I was completely wrong about that, obviously. And then I also thought that at some point, the drawing kid said that the person who killed Azura is going to kill Tokyo next. And I was theorizing at that point that, yeah, I basically thought that because the woman at the Immortal Order died, I thought that was Azura. And then I thought that the person who killed Azura, which is Maru, is going to come and kill Tokyo next, because that's what the guy said. Anyway, whatever, forget that theory. It's in the past, whatever. But anyway, that was Heavenly Delusion. 5 out of 5. I absolutely recommend this show. So next up, we have Avatar: The Last Airbender 2024. So this is a TV show. It has 8 episodes, and I watched it on the 24th of February. I think I watched it in, maybe it was like 2 days, maybe it was 1 day. I don't remember. I watched it very quickly though. So for some context, I'm a big Avatar: The Last Airbender fan. I've seen the original show. I've seen The Legend of Korra. I love both. So my overall thoughts on this show is it is a 3 out of 5. So it's mixed. There's some good, there's some bad. I think it's mostly good with, quite a lot of bad, but like not enough bad to kind of erase the good. So here we are, 3 out of 5. But in my actual notes here, I've separated into 3 sections. We've got the good, the mixed, and the bad. So the good elements of this show is basically every production element. So the sets look great, and I know they're using the volume a lot. Like if you look at the behind the scenes things, so that element of like sets or mixing the VFX with the actual sets looks great. The VFX itself looks really great. Sound effects and music, like all of that. I think all the production elements of this are really great. Second to that, I think the casting is all really good. I think basically, well, with very few exceptions, I think every character either looks or at least sounds like the character from the animated show. So I think they nailed the casting for that. Now, there are some issues with acting we'll get to, but I think the actual casting is done very well. And if you want to see more about, like, I guess the casting and adaptations and stuff, I did do a tier list about that, so it's on this channel somewhere. Another good thing is that I liked how they merged all the storylines in the Omashu place. So they had like Jet there, they had the inventor guy and his son there, they had the Boomy stuff there. There was basically and even Zuko and Iroh showed up there. I liked how they merged all that together. Like it all felt cohesive. It felt like, okay, we don't have to go and now spend some time in another location with Jet. We can like have all these stories tied together. I thought that was very good. Good choice. And finally, the final last good thing here is that I think there's 2 episodes that I think are actually really good. Like they'd probably be 4 out of 5s. And that would be episode 1. I really liked episode 1. It was a very promising start to the show. And episode 6, which is the one with the blue spirit, and it's basically framed by Zuko the entire time. You open the episode with the young Zuko, you close the episode with the Agni Kai. Or not the Agni Kai, with the, you have the Agni Kai in this episode, but it ends with Zuko coming to the ship, and you reveal that they're like the crew that he has now, or like the crew that he saved that were going to be sacrificed by the Fire Lord. So 2 standout episodes. Now, the mixed things of this show, the first thing, which is obviously integral to the show, is the bending. So I think that we have 4 elements here. I think all the elements, I think the VFX look great. There's no issue with the VFX or anything. But the fire and air are fantastic. They feel like fire bending and earth bending. The movements are great. The air bending looks great. You can actually see it because of all the particles and all that. The fire bending looks fantastic, and the movements feel natural, and it feels like they're doing cool flips and stuff. And I love that. The earthbending is decent, like it's a mix where it looks really great, the actual visual effects of it. It feels so. The thing is, sometimes it feels great. It feels like a real struggle to like move heavy rocks and stuff. And then on the other hand, we have instances where it feels too easy to move rocks. Like the one example I think of is when that one guy, one Earth Omashu guy, is escorting Iroh away, and he gets angry at him, and he like quickly lifts this giant rock on top of him and is going to drop it down. But in other situations, we've seen people struggle to like lift rocks like that. So it's a bit inconsistent like that. And also, we're missing a bit of the fun of earthbending. When I think of earthbending, it's my favorite bending style. I think of 2 things. I think of Boomy fighting Aang, and then falling as like a snow angel into the ground and actually like being absorbed into the ground. And it kind of feels like he has complete mastery over the earth. It's like the earth is like an extension of his body. He can do cool stuff like that. Another thing I think of is in the Blind Bandit episode where Toph loses to Aang in that fight, and she walks off and she like opens up a door, walks through it, closes the door, and there's no way to get through. And it feels very magical. And it's not really magical. It feels very natural, I guess, and very powerful, I guess. And I never really got that in this show. So that's why the earthbending is mixed. The waterbending is bad. We get very little of it. Anything we get of it feels like Katara's using it to, when she uses it offensively against people, it feels like she's just splashing with them with water and they happen to fall over for some reason. I don't like that. It basically just feels very powerful and flimsy, and I don't like it at all. Now, the one exception is the ice. When she used her breath to like freeze Jet, I thought that was really good, and it felt effective or whatever, even though that fight happened in like 2 seconds and it was a bit quicker than, the show, but whatever. Waterbending, bad. All the other elements, good. Earth, decent. Another mixed element here is the fights. So all the fights, I think, are perfectly serviceable. I would dare say all the fights are good. I can't think of a single one where I'm like, man, I can think of one that was bad, but we'll get to that. But everything was good. But the thing is that there's none that are memorable. Like you're not getting anything like, I guess I will probably make a few comparisons to the Netflix One Piece, but I think the action choreography and stuff in One Piece was really good and very memorable. Like I distinctly remember in that first episode, Zoro fighting the people in the bar. Like I thought that was really great. Or even at the beginning, like right at the beginning, I think it's the scene where we meet Zoro when he's fighting that random, I don't know if it's an assassin or whatever. Some guy comes in who's like named, and I think it's probably some big character that comes later on. He comes and fights Zoro in the, I don't know, some forest area, and I remember how great that looked, and it's like a standout fight. There's a lot of that in One Piece. There's none of that in this. I don't remember, besides the Agni Kai, which I think that stands out more as like a character moment than a actual fight scene. I don't think anything else stands out like that. So it's mixed. It's like they're good, but they're not very memorable. Another thing, which is mixed, is that an adaptation decision they decided to make was to replace the big I don't know what it was, the solstice, the winter solstice or whatever, when Roku gets takes over Aang and does this big thing and shows the power of the Avatar. They decided instead of adapting that, they gave it to Kyoshi. And when Aang is at the Kyoshi Island, he gets taken over by Kyoshi. And this is mixed because obviously the highlight of book one, or one of the major highlights of book one, and maybe the major highlights of the show overall, is when Roku takes over Aang. And obviously Roku is like a massive character in the entire story. I guess he's not really a massive character, but he's a very influential character. Like he guides Aang along his journey. We see him a few times where he's explaining things to him. And obviously in book three, we get the major episode with Roku where it's a backstory with Sozin. And like that's a very important episode, I think, for the whole show. Because it like contextualizes the how there can be peace between two people and how two people can grow apart that are otherwise friends. And I think it's important for the show. And they, instead of like, I think getting rid of that scene kind of undermines Roku coming later, because it's you get like a really weak introduction to him here. But then again, it's really cool to see Kyoshi, and because it's an adaptation, you can actually see things that you didn't see in the original, and this time we get to see more of the other avatars. So it's like a trade-off. It's like it's good for one thing, but bad for the other. So anyway, that's one mixed thing. The final mixed thing is that there's I guess this is more of a general extension to the fighting, which is that there's no there's not many outright terrible scenes. Like there's not many scenes where I'm like, man, I just like cringed watching that. It was like, I don't want to, it's like, there's not many scenes like we're in the original Avatar movie or whatever in 2010 with the M. Night Shyamalan thing. It's not bad things like that. But at the same time, there's not very memorable scenes or anything like that. Like I don't have a scene that I'm looking forward to someone reacting, with very few exceptions, like maybe the Agni Kai stuff, because it's new, I guess. But there's not really much where I'm like, man, that was very memorable, and I really want to rewatch the show to see that, you know. So that's kind of mixed. I did also, I have my notes here, one comparison to, once again, the One Piece live action, the Zeph and Sanji backstory and their final goodbye on the ship. Like those are two things which are like standout moments, very emotional, which I'll remember forever, and I look forward to people reacting to when they get to the actual reactions for the show. There's nothing like that really in this. So yeah, those are the mixed. Now the bad elements of this show, there's one giant bad thing about this show. This is probably the big reason why I have an issue with it, and probably I imagine the reason why most people have an issue with it, which is the tone. On one hand, it's the actual concept and the world and the characters and everything in this Avatar universe is too mystical and too fantastical and too inherently lighthearted for it to fit a serious tone, I think, without really committing to the serious tone and cutting a lot out of it. Like I think it's possible to adapt it very seriously and for it to work very effectively and feel very prestigious and all that, and like, you know, for adults and everything. But I think there's a lot you need to cut away. And at the same time, the actual show that we get is too stiff and serious, and tries to balance that with adding like levity and jokes and stuff that is just, it comes across as like feeling quite lifeless, where it's like the majority of the time it's very stiff and serious, and it's like you're interjecting jokes to kind of make it feel like a more lighthearted thing that it just doesn't quite get there. And it to me just feels like a mix of tones that just, it's not fun to watch. That's my major criticism of this thing. It feels like a lifeless story is what I've written down. Another thing is the dialogue delivery. There's quite a few bad line deliveries, which I've only written down 2. But the thing is, I don't know if I would blame the actors or the directors, because it feels like some of the lines are so close to being great, but it just feels like, why would you not do another take of this? Like that's the criticism I would do. And I have 2 lines here. One of them is, this is from Katara, like right at the beginning, and she says to Sokka, I know how hard this responsibility has been for you. And to me, I can't do it justice, I guess, but that line, if you go back and watch it, it just feels so awkward to me. Like the word has just feels like so out of place, and it doesn't need to be there. And it's like, it sounds like she's reading from a script or something, and I just don't like it. And another one I have, which I don't remember the context for this, but someone says, they made the ultimate sacrifice for me. I need to make sure their deaths weren't in vain. I need to follow through on what they wanted me to do. I think it's that final line I probably have an issue with. It's like, I need to follow through on what they wanted me to do. Like, I don't know, there's something about it where I'm like, the way they deliver it and the actual writing of it is just, I don't know, it's not for me. It comes across as stiff and like they're just readings. Another bad thing is, I think there's 3 characters that they completely miss on. And that is, if you've seen my tier list, you probably know what I'm going to say, but the most obvious and the worst adaptation is Roku. He doesn't feel like Roku at all. He's like a weird mix of like 2 in-your-face comical and lighthearted, and 2 randomly serious and like confrontational. It just does not feel like Roku at all. besides the visuals. Like, he looks like Roku, he just does not act like him at all. Another one is Iroh, which I talked about, and I imagine this is probably a bit controversial, but to me, he doesn't feel like Iroh at all. He doesn't feel subtle enough. It feels like he's putting on an act when he's saying things, like the way he's delivering lines to Zuko, like, oh, why don't we try some jasmine tea or whatever. It feels like he's belittling Zuko by like it's like he's putting on an act to satisfy him or something. I don't know how to describe it. It just doesn't feel genuine, is what I would say about Iroh. But you can go have a look at the tier list if you're interested in that. And the last character is, I think, Boomy, which is a complete miss, because it's just so weird. It's such a different choice to take, because in this, Boomy genuinely has issues with Aang, and he is frustrated that Aang like abandoned his duties or whatever. At least that's what I watched this a while ago, but that's what I remember from it. Whereas in the original story, Boomy is understanding of Aang's journey and is trying to guide him through the tests that he gives him about, like, you know, have your friends with you and blah, blah, blah. He has like tests for him, and Aang learns things through them. And at the end, they have a moment where they're happy to see each other. And it feels like they completely undermined, or they took a very different approach to Boomy here, which, you know, I liked Boomy, so it's a shame to see that. Then my final bad thing here is that there's some storylines that are cut or that are ruined completely. And one of those is, in my opinion, Azula. I know that I'm sure there probably are a lot of people who would enjoy the added elements here to her character. They'd be like, wow, this is great. We got to see her character seeded early, and we can see her grow as she goes on. To me, I don't like it. I think the appeal of Azula is that initially she is in such a powerful position, so confident in herself and abilities and her station in life, and we see that unraveling as the story goes on. I think that's the entire appeal of Azula as a character. And obviously by the end of it, she's completely unraveling. She goes crazy and she loses everything, and she loses in the end. I think the way they do it here, where it's like we're initially seeing her not as confident, not as good. Her fire isn't blue, which is a major issue I have here. It's just. And she's also like, Ozai is criticizing her, and she just doesn't feel as in control, and it just does not feel like Azula, and it's not a very satisfying way to start this character that is otherwise in a very powerful position in the original. So I didn't like that. I think the Azula storyline is completely ruined. Then, on the other hand, the other major issue with this is the Northern Water Tribe storyline. I think that was very weak. It felt very rushed. Now they got rid of the whole Grand storyline, how he was related to the Paku was like in love with Grand. She left because of the sexism or whatever. That's fine. I don't mind if that's there or not. My issue is more with the pacing of it, and just the fact that they don't spend any time learning waterbending whatsoever. Like, what was the point of going there? Like, purely just to save people from the prophecy that Aang saw from Kyoshi at the beginning? Like, it's such a weak motivation, I guess. Oh, okay, it's not a weak motivation. Saving people is obviously great, but it's just add a few scenes where they're learning waterbending. Like, come on. And that's like another major thing, which is that throughout this entire show, this entire season, Aang doesn't learn any waterbending or any other elements whatsoever. It's like, come on, these are little things. Every now and then, just have him like show off like a little bit of bending that he's practicing on their journey. I don't know. Yeah, so those are the two biggest storylines that I thought were poorly adapted. So that's my overall thoughts. Now, going into each of the episodes, I have a few miscellaneous thoughts. So episode 1, so this is, I'd put like a brief description of what happens. So this is right from the beginning, episode 1, until they go to the Southern Air Temple and like Aang turns into the Avatar state and blah, 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 all that. And I said this is one of the best episodes of the season, which I mentioned before. I love the, I guess one major decision adaptation wise that they made was to show the actual attack from the Fire Nation on the day of Sozin's Comet. I thought that was really good. It was very, emotionally evocative. I thought it was very great. It set a different tone for the show, which I was hoping it would stick to more thoroughly. I love it. It's great. But I do have some criticisms, which is it's not really a criticism, but it bothered me when I was watching it, which is that they show the first scene you get of Aang is him descending down, like from this high pillar all the way down. It just makes him look like he's flying. Obviously he's not flying, whatever. He probably couldn't go the other way upwards, but it's just like, why do you portray it so ambiguously the first time you see it? I just don't like it. Another thing is that in this actual fight, when the Fire Nation comes and Gyatso is defending the kids, it just didn't feel like Gyatso fought hard enough. Because when you see his body in the temple, at least when you see it, in the original animated series, in my headcanon, I'm like, oh my god, this guy killed all these Fire Nation soldiers. It must have been an intense battle. And it didn't come across like that at all. It's like he spun his stick a little bit. Sozin showed up and Sozin just killed him quickly. And it didn't feel as grand as I would have hoped to see from Gyatso. but it was emotional. It was emotional seeing these airbenders die. So I thought they did a good job in that regard. And the final note for episode 1 is that this is another criticism of episode 1, which is that, or even just the show as a whole, there really is. You cannot feel the difference in power between the day that the Firebenders had the comet, when they go and invade the Fire Nation, the Air Nation, or Airbenders, whatever. Are they even called the Air Nation? I don't know. You don't feel the difference in their power on that day compared to just the rest of the show. They feel equally as powerful. It doesn't feel like they were specially powered up or anything like that. I think they did a very poor job of conveying the idea of the comet, which they have left out from the overarching plot of this entire story, because obviously that was a big motivation for Aang when he meets Roku, and Roku's like, there's a comet coming in a year, you need to practice master all the elements before summer's end or whatever. That element is completely removed, so maybe they are just not forgetting about the comet as a big thing. But that was a bit of a weak element of an otherwise great first episode. Then we have episode 2, which is the nice screenshot we have here for the show. It was the Kyoshi Warriors episode, and I thought this was pretty great. I thought Suki was fantastic. If you go look at my adaptation tier list, I said that adaptation wise, I think she's an A tier. She felt a bit different because she felt more alien, and she saw Sokka as a weird outsider, which she was interested in, rather than actually making a more genuine connection with him. But as the actual episode goes on, they do make a genuine connection, and I thought it was very well done. I like their scene where they're practicing the fighting together, and they're accidentally hugging and stuff like that. I thought that was really great. It was a fun episode. I like the Kyoshi thing. Like I said, I enjoy watching it. I would probably prefer if it was the Roku had that moment instead with Aang, because it would be it's more important for his character, who is a grander part of the whole story. But I enjoyed watching the Kyoshi thing, so I'm fine with it. Let's see, what actual notes do I have? Oh yeah, at the beginning of this episode, or maybe it's toward the middle or something, Katara gives a speech about, oh my god, Aang has already changed my life so much, and it just feels like it happens way too soon, and it feels very unearned, I guess is what I would say. Another miscellaneous note for this episode is that I think if only this text had been moved a little bit and you could see Suki's face, because in my opinion, Suki looks way more like Azula than the actual actress for Azula. And it's strange, but not to say that the actor of Azula doesn't look like Azula, because in some shots when the fire is glimmering in her eye and her hair is down or whatever, I'm like, oh my god, that's literally Azula. So there are some scenes where Azula looks perfect, but otherwise I think this actor probably would have been better in that role, visual wise, not acting wise or anything. But yeah. And the final miscellaneous thing for episode 2 is that it is interesting how they're interweaving a lot more of the past avatars, because the one thing we do get of the past avatars in the original animated series is in book 3, the finale, Sozin's Comet. I think it's part 2 or 3 or something, where Aang is talking to all the past avatars to get advice. So instead of doing giving him a moment there, they're spreading it out over this season. And as an original show, if you're just treating it as a show, on its own, you've never seen the animated, I think it works well. It's a nice guiding force. It shows you different avatars in the past. It's cool like that. But as an adaptation, I think I prefer it right at the end, because it's Aang is in a desperate moment. He's trying to get help, and these people are not helping him. Maybe they'll still keep a scene like that, but I feel if you're spreading it out like this, I don't know. I feel you probably wouldn't have a scene like that later, but I value that scene so much. So that's my little hesitation there. But anyway, that was episode 2. Now, episode 3 is the first part of the Omashu storyline. So we have Jet and the inventor guy, basically those storylines. I don't know what the inventor guy's name is, so we're just going to call him that. So what notes do I have? Well, firstly, I think these were well, like I said before, the adaptation choice to actually include all these things together in one episode was great. However, I kind of found these episodes pretty boring. I remember I remember almost falling asleep at the end of episode 3 and taking a break because of that. So yeah, I guess that's my actual thoughts on these episodes, but they weren't terrible, all right? They were just pretty bland. But my first note here is that the actual Fire Nation throne room that we get with Ozai, it looks fantastic. The visual effects of it, I assume it's a mix of the volume with a practical set or something, but it looks really good. I like it. It looks so good that it feels a bit it feels on a different level to the way the rest of the show looks, lighting or cinematography wise or something. It looks really good. So yeah, there's that. Then I just have my note here, glazing Azula, how absolutely perfect she looks when the fire glimmers in her eye. I think it looked really great. But don't get me wrong, there are also a lot of other shots where she doesn't really look like Azula at all, especially the first shot you get of her where she's she's hiding as an Earth Nation spy or something, and then she takes the thing off or whatever, and she's looking at us, and I'm that doesn't look like Azula, who is this? What a random casting they did here. But anyway, and the final thing, it's Okay, so I love that they introduced, you know, Jet and Boomy and the fire Zuko and Iroh and the Fire Nation inventor guy who's given stuff to them. I like that they merged all that together. However, the fact that Jet and his people are hiding in a forest inside Omashu is so goofy. And it's like, how does the Earth Nation not find this random like group of people who are hiding out here? Like it's just so goofy to me. It's yeah, I don't like that idea of it, but even if it works on a grander scale of merging all these plots. Anyway, then we have the second Omashu episode, which is Aang versus Boomy, and then Zuko tracking down Iroh. Yeah, this was also pretty boring, but it was okay. It was fine. I watched it. So Iroh and Aang get both imprisoned at the end of the last episode, and now they're talking in prison, and I'm not really sure how I feel about it. Like it bothers me, right? But I'm just trying to think of why it bothers me, because oh, maybe it is just me, like just being blinded by the original. Because when I think of Iroh and Aang talking, I think of them talking in the tunnel at the end of like book 2, and I'm like, oh, I don't want to like set up a relationship now, so the undermined moments later. But like as a scene itself, where they're talking to each other, it doesn't really bother me. But you know, there's always things like that in the future that I'm worried that like scenes like this are going to cheapen. You know, but we'll see. Like I briefly mentioned before, that Jet and Katara fight lasted like literally 2 seconds. Like they're about to fight, and then she like freezes him, and I'm like, man. I actually appreciated how quick that was, even if it was a bit goofy, how it was like a 2-second fight. But I do remember I wasn't the biggest fan of Jet and his like story arc in the original, so I was kind of glad to see it shortened, but at the cost of being incredibly shortened of like a 2-second fight like that. So it was crazy. What I really liked was the depiction of the Omashu, or Uma and Shu, like their storyline, where you have like a nice tablet that's been like engraved into the earth, and as we go through the different things that have been engraved in the tablet, it like adds color to it, and it like visualizes it really well, and I thought that was a great way to tell the story of Omashu. What else? Another like small awkward like adaptation thing is that why doesn't Aang ask Boomy to be his teacher? Because I feel like if I was in Aang's position, I would be like, this is the first earthbending person that I've seen that is actually like listening to me or whatever, and I can contacting him and we're old friends and everything. I should probably be asking him to teach me, right? And I'm pretty sure in the original he does ask him to teach him, and Boomy's like, no, you need to wait for someone who like waits and listens or something. So I don't know, it's like it's small details like this where I'm like, why is Aang not concerned about learning elements at all? Like he should be like trying to become the Avatar, you know? So I don't know. It bothered me a little bit. Well, then the final thing is that episode 4 is the one where we get the flashback to Luten's funeral or wake or whatever you call it, where Iroh was basically sitting in the chair and everyone's comforting him or like saying just reciting platitudes, and then Zuko comes and sits next to him. I thought that was great. Emotional scene. The music they use is like a rendition of Leaves from the Vine, I think it's called, and I thought that was done really well. But I've got that stuck in my head ever since. So yeah, that was really great. Then we have episode 5, which is, oh no, this was Spirited Away. That's what this one was called, I think. And it's basically the Jesus Christ, Katara and Sokka, they have their flashbacks, and Ko is like introduced to the story. And it's like, I think Aang is in the spirit world and stuff, but it's small things like that. I think this is the worst episode. It probably is the worst episode because they changed so much, and me, you know, loving the original so much, I'm like, don't change that. How dare you change that? So that's probably what most of these notes will be. But here's my actual note about the bending. Like I said before, I said bending doesn't feel magical in this show. I have a very distinct feeling when I think to the bending of the original show. It feels so real and natural and an extension of the body. Whereas in this, it kind of just feels like they're doing moves and things are happening. So yeah. I like what is this? Oh yeah, despite what I was saying about like Azula, her storyline being butchered completely and undermining the entire point of her character, I do like the idea of having Ozai pit the two siblings against each other. Like, I think that is a good idea. If only it didn't have to come at the sacrifice of, like, Azula's character arc, you know? But, yeah. But there is one thing that I briefly mentioned this, but I didn't emphasize it, which almost, you know, this is one of those things where it's so bad that I would love to give the show a 1 out of 5 and just cite this as the only reason I don't like it. And it's the fact that Azula's fire is not blue. Okay? The coolest thing about Azula is that when you first meet her, and throughout the entire thing, she's the only character that has blue firebending, and it instantly portrays her as a prodigy and unique and a very threatening, menacing villain. And they completely left it out, and I hate it. Now, okay, they didn't technically completely leave it out, because at one point when she's like really angry or something, you get like a little whoosh, and it's like a little bit of blue, and it's like meant to hint that eventually she's gonna have blue lightning and she's gonna master a technique or whatever. I don't like it, right? I don't want to see Azula's character growth. I want to see her at her peak and then decline from there. So that was incredibly frustrating and disappointing, and probably the show deserves a 1 out of 5 just because of that, but whatever. Now, I said this is also an incredibly boring episode, which it absolutely is. Half the episode is just flashbacks to Katara and Sokka, and I'm not interested in them at all. There's probably some people out there who are like, oh my god, this is great, we have to flesh out these characters, and don't we love character backstories and growth and all these generic pseudo objective markers of good writing, and I just find them boring. So that's my response to that. But anyway, let's see. I have like a list of stuff that I guess I don't like here. So in regard to the actual spirit world, the effect that they chose is like this weird chromatic aberration and like adding more smoke and stuff, and it just does not look very magical and doesn't feel otherworldly. It just feels like you put a weird filter over the existing world. So I don't like it. I don't like the visual portrayal of the spirit world in this at all. The fact that they run into Wan Shi Tong, which is the owl, the big owl thing, it's just like it's like weird. Why is Wan Shi Tong just standing in a random like forest in the middle of a road? Like it just feels weird. I don't like it. Why is Yue a fox? Like I guess when I'm questioning things here, like just questioning like why does something happen isn't really a criticism, I guess, but I don't know, it just bothers me. I'm like, did you really have to make Yue a fox in the spirit world where she singles out Sokka because of some like why does she single out Sokka? Like I get later on, right? We meet Yue and she's like, you're the man of my dreams, blah blah blah, and that's cute, you know, that's fine, whatever. But then you get to the point of like, why is Sokka the man of her dreams? Is it just because he happened to be walking down a path at one time where like where the fox was like also there as well? Like the fact that they just happen to run into each other and from there is where their relationship stems. It just cheapens the connection that he has with her later. Because in the actual original show, Sokka was in a similar way to what happened with Suki in this show. Sokka kind of felt like an outsider and someone who like valued who was different, who didn't have expectations of her and everything. But in this show, it's kind of like they love each other because they were meant for each other or something. It just undermines it like that. And then we get yet another visual of Katara's mother dying to the Fire Nation, and I think it's like the 5th time that they showed it. They just keep showing the scene because it's meant to evoke some emotional thing or whatever. It was cool the first time, it was okay the second time, it was tolerable the third time, but my god, seeing it here again, I was like, why are you showing this again? Anyway. We also get no resolution to the Spirit of the Forest storyline, so the actual spirit that was, taking the villagers in the original is reduced to some just random monster that they meet in the spirit world that has nothing to do with the actual villagers that are being taken, so I don't know, that was completely cut for some reason. And also throughout this entire, like this episode, and I think the next episode, Aang just is constantly whining, or not whining is probably not the best word, but he's complaining. I don't even know. He's basically saying, I need to save my friends. Let me do this so I can save my friends. And it just says it so many times. I'm like, man, this is annoying. So anyway, those are my like minor, but they frustrate me greatly, criticisms of episode 5. Then we have episode 6, which is a fantastic episode. So this is the Blue Spirit and the Zuko Agni Kai stuff. I guess the Blue Spirit is also a Zuko thing. Basically, episode 6 is the big Zuko episode, which is fantastic. This is the best episode of the season, probably. Another like, miscellaneous thing, I don't have a note on this, but I'm pretty sure episode 1 and episode 6, which are the two that I really like, they have the names of the like Brian and Mike or whatever the actual creators of the animated series are. Their names are attached to those episodes, whether in the role of screenwriter or just writer or something, and not any of the others, I think. So to me, it makes me question of like, were they actually involved in the writing for these two particularly, and that's why these episodes were good? Or did they realize that these 2 episodes are the only good episodes, so they decided, we don't want to be associated with the other episodes, leave our names out, let's only attach our names to these 2 good episodes? That's kind of what I'm wondering, because it would say a lot about like whether their involvement actually does benefit the show, because it happened to be for the 2 good episodes they were involved, or if they're literally just like doing the inverse, which, doesn't say anything about the quality of their writing or anything. Anyway, so episode 6, this is a very big, like, Iroh being out of character thing, which is that the Lieutenant G is, like, yelling at, not yelling, I guess he is yelling. He's angry that Zuko is, like, not listening to him or whatever, and he's like, what does Zuko know about sacrifice and how much we've sacrificed and blah, 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 blah. And he's saying that to Iroh, and then Iroh at the end is like, he knows far more about sacrifice than you can ever know, and he's, like, angry at G, and I'm like, this is not Iroh. Like, Iroh who does Iroh think he is in this situation? Like, he doesn't know this guy's upbringing or like struggles or what his family gave up for him to be in this position or anything like that. Like, it's such a cruel thing to say to someone. Like, more than you can ever know. This man has suffered more than you will ever suffer. And it's like, Iroh would be way more empathetic in this situation and like understanding of G's frustrations than to just snap at him like that. So yeah, that's like one of the many examples of why I just feel like Iroh was not the same Iroh that I remember. Then we have the journey to get to Roku is much quicker. Oh yeah, true. He just like flies there and it feels very quick, which doesn't bother me too much. It's just the thing I thought worth bringing up. And the conversation is far less grand. So I've already complained about the Roku adaptation, but yeah, it's just he does not feel like Roku at all. It's way too lighthearted. He's goofy and like confrontational, and it's just a complete miss in my opinion. The Zuko flashbacks are the best part of the show. Yep, that's very true. Yeah, actually, they're not just the best part of the show from a story perspective, but also from like a visual cinematography and all that. Like I said, the Fire Nation throne room and the Agni Kai area, they all look fantastic, like way better than the rest of the show. It almost feels like they were written like completely independently from the rest of the show just by how good they are. So yeah. Oh, and then also there's this scene in this episode where the Firebenders like surround Zuko when I think he's captured Aang, and they all like come up to them and they're doing this with their fingers. They've like crunched their fingers like this, and it looks so goofy. And like, why do they do that? Like, it would look so much cooler if they were like this, and like the fire would like shoot out of their hands like this. I don't know if you can see this, but I can't see my monitor here. But they just look goofy, like kids that are like trying to scare you or something by doing this. I don't like it. Anyway, minor criticism that was a bit weird to see. The show also needs way more intense yelling or acting scenes. Like, we get one really good scene in this episode, which is Zhao giving a victory speech about capturing the Avatar. And he's like yelling and is very passionate and everything. And we don't get anything else like that throughout this whole show, which is a bit of a missed opportunity, because you can get nice passionate scenes like that, which are always fun to watch. Then I said, there's really nothing special about the directing of the show, is there? And then I said, the cinematography is great through it. That's true. Like the actual shots you see and the way we like transition between like certain scenes and stuff, it's just not very interesting. But the lighting and the way things are positioned and all that, like I think it's like the sets and props and all that, they all look really great. So it's a mixed bag in that regard. The Blue Spirits action choreography is really great, and I assume that's because they got like some random stunt person behind a mask to do it. I thought it looked really good. But there is one this is very minor over criticism, which is that when the Blue Spirit and Aang are like at the gate and Zhao shows up and he's like, I need the Avatar alive. In the original, the Blue Spirit instantly like gets the blades on Aang's neck and is about to like is threatening to kill him or whatever. In this, you see the Blue Spirit like for a moment like think, and he like looks and you can kind of see him thinking, and then he like slowly puts the blades on there, and it's kind of like takes away from his like capability or whatever, or like competence, because he has to actually think about what to do in that situation. Whereas in the original, the Blue Spirit was like he instantly knew what to do and he took control of the situation straight away. So I don't know, it kind of like undermined a bit of his character there. Which of course it is Zuko, so you know it's probably more accurate to portray him like this, but I thought it was way cooler in the original, and I like cool things. I also love of the flashbacks we get into the past with the Fire Nation and all that. I really like that we get a little bit of the depiction between Iroh and Ozai as brothers, like their relationship. It really feels like Iroh was the one person in the world who can speak to Ozai plainly. And you can also tell at the same time when Iroh was speaking to Ozai plainly, Ozai clearly despises him or like thinks of him as like weak and pathetic. Like it's really well portrayed, their relationship in this, so I like that a lot. Then obviously at the end of this, we get the reveal that it was Ozai assigned the 41st Division to be Zuko's crew. And that's a really good change in this. It's probably the emotional climax of the show. And yeah, it's just, the episode ends with this really cute scene where they're all like they're all standing at attention to Zuko and they all bow for him when he walks through. And it is great. It's a great emotional thing. Great idea. What a cool decision to make this change. Just a weird thing the show does, which is that every now and then at the end of episodes they'll have like a monologue where a character is monologuing and like various scenes are being shown, like a montage or whatever. I think in this one it's probably Iroh monologuing about something to do with Zuko, and to me it's just like it's so empty and they feel so like such generic monologues, and I'm not a fan of them. So yeah. And a very minor thing, which is that I also Ko is in this episode. I barely mentioned him here, but I do like the fact that Ko like loves his mother and he gives up all the villagers just to get like a treasured item that relates to her, and I thought that was a very cute storyline, so I like that. Then we have the Northern Water Tribe episode. So episode 7 is the first part of the Northern Water Tribe stuff. These two episodes are easily the weakest of the show, and I think one of the reasons this show is probably I think the success of the Netflix's One Piece is that it ends on a high. The best episode of the Netflix like live action adaptation of One Piece, like the best aspect of it is that it ends like the best episode is the final episode basically, and the best moment is probably the final moment, like where they're all like putting their legs on the chairs or whatever, and then you go around and see the poster that Luffy got or whatever. I don't remember exactly what's the last scene, but it's fantastic. Like it really ends on like I can't wait to see the next season. This one ends like with the worst quality like dialogue and action, and everything about these last 2 episodes are the worst. And it just leaves me with a feeling of like, do I really want to see more of this? Like if they ended on episode 6 with the climax of the 41st Division being revealed to be the men that Zuko saved, like that would be a climax for the show. And I'd be like, I can't wait to see where the show goes next season. But this is not a good ending, basically. And I think why it's probably not going to be as favorably viewed by most people compared to One Piece. Anyway, so for the episode 7, my miscellaneous notes here. I said this show feels like it completely fell apart in these final 2 episodes. Yue's hair is laughably terrible. It looks like a wig. I'm pretty sure it is a wig. It looks really bad. Then I said, how old is Yue meant to be? Because in this, to me, she feels like she's in her like very late 20s. Like she could, if you told me she was like 30, I'd be like, yeah, I believe it. And I think it's like, it's not bad casting. Like I think she looks the role. If you fix the wig, I think she'd look like Yue like well enough. But she just like, compared to all the other actors that feel like actual kids, she does not feel like a kid at all. Then we get a conversation between Yue and Sokka where Aang is meditating, and it's like the most boring directing ever. It's like shot, reverse shot, reverse shot, show Yue, show Sokka, show Yue, and it's like, did they run out of time or like budget for these like last episodes? Why are they like so boring compared to the rest of the show? This is a weird thing. This is for people who've seen both the movie and this adaptation, but when I saw this, they showed the Northern Water Tribe. It just felt like such a waste, like build all these assets for this, because I think they nailed the look of the Water Tribe in that first movie, or at least like my memory from when I watched it like 14 years ago or whatever. It just looked like it looked like they took the animated series and like plucked the Northern Water Tribe out of it and like made it live action. And here they are doing it again. It's like, imagine wasting like time to design a thing that looked good enough in the movie. But I think it looked really great in this as well. They nailed the design of the actual Northern Water Tribe. Then, my final note for episode 7 is just the Katara Paku fight. So this is what I was referencing earlier, where I said, like, I think basically every fight is good. This is the one exception. It felt so incredibly small scale. There was like a random crowd of like a very few people that were just watching it and like encase the fight in like a very small region, like a very small location. The movements felt so cumbersome. The water bending felt so weak. Paku himself does not come across as a master, and Katara absolutely does not feel like she is doing anything worthwhile of being like recognized as a powerful warrior or anything like that. There's this one shot where where she's like sliding up the ice or something, and it looks so slow, and like the actual choreography or like visual effects or something looks off on that scene to a weird degree, because everything else in this show, like the action pieces look great, but this scene stood out as particularly bad. Like if you told me this scene was from the 2010 movie, I would believe it. Like that's the level of quality we're talking about here. Anyway. Then we have the final episode 8, so the second part of the Northern Water Tribe stuff. And then I made a very similar comparison here. I said the whole Northern Water Tribe stuff feels very similar to the movie, where it feels kind of lifeless and stiff, and it has very slow action, and there's no emotions and no soul, and it's like, why am I watching this? And then, what is this? Another element they add to this show, and I think it's intermixed throughout, like you even get it in the Boomy fight and the Ko stuff, and even now in the finale, they've added this element of like fighting alone versus fighting with the friends, and it's such a boring storyline. Like, who is gonna watch this and be like, oh, I'm so glad that Aang chose to fight with his friends? Like, I don't know. Maybe this was also a thing in the original that I completely forgot, but like it just felt like they were hammering it on their heads like every arc here, and I just did not enjoy it at all. Then we have I was laughing a lot in this final episode. Like there were 2 things that really made me laugh. One of them is when Paku, I think, is like fighting the Fire Nation, and he's like standing on the wall or whatever, and he turns around and there's all these women who are there to help, and they're all like staring like somberly or like staring at him like in a serious like formation, and I'm like, this is the goofiest thing I've ever seen in my life. And Jesus, I need to rewatch it. It's just so funny. And the second funniest, craziest thing I've ever seen was Momo doing a suicide dive to save the person from the rock that was falling on them, and then he's unconscious, and Sokka picks him up, and he's like this lifeless flopping around body that I'm like, Jesus Christ, why are they showing this? Firstly, why did they kill Momo like this? Is because I thought he was dead. And why is he holding him around in this like goofy manner where his like body is like flopping around? It's like so weird. And then why does Sokka even care about Momo at this point? Like they've had like 2 scenes where they've like interacted with each other. It's crazy. Anyway, it was hilarious. I died laughing watching that. Then Katara, her like progression in waterbending is like a complete mess in the show. It feels like she out of nowhere just becomes incredibly powerful at the end here. Like when she's fighting Zuko, and it just feels so unnatural, and like, why would you not seed something like this? Like that she's getting better slowly. Oh boy. Then I have the okay, when they got rid of the moon, the way they represent it is that first when they take out the moon spirit or whatever, everything turns red, and it's like it's okay. Like they could have probably made it look a bit more special or something, but it's fine. Everything's red, okay. And then I think like when Aang goes into the pond or whatever, or does he not even do that here? I don't know. Something happens and basically everything turns desaturated, like it's all grayscale or something. And that's in like I like that. I think they even did that in the original from memory. Like that's fine. But what they did so terribly, and I don't know how anyone saw this and like thought this was a good idea, which is that when they shoot the fire in the grayscale place, it brings back the color to the scene, which is like so antithetical. Is that the word? Antithetical or whatever? Like it's the complete opposite of what you want. You don't want the enemy here who is destroying the Fire Nation, the waterbenders, and like destroying the good people here, who just took out the moon spirit that is like the balance of the world. You don't want those people to be the ones that are bringing color and life back into the story. Like what you want is that when you see the flashes of light, like instead of lighting up the color, bring back the red hue. Like why? It's such a dumb decision that I can't imagine why a director would make a decision like this. Because every time I see the light shine on, like reflect on someone, the fire bending, and it just looks like color, I'm like, oh my god, aren't the Fire Nation just the great like symbolic good people here? Because they're bringing the color back into the world. So I don't know what the idea was there, but it was terrible. The voice of the Avatar state, like when we have the echoing of like all the voices, it just sounded terrible. It sounded like Aang just barked like a dog or something. It was really goofy. Then there's the Godzilla, like he turns into Godzilla basically, like very clearly that's what it's a reference to. Excuse me. I think it looks terrible and out of place. I've actually seen that some people do like that, and they think it's like a really good adaptation of it. To me, it just looked goofy and felt very earthly. Like Godzilla is a design that's meant to feel like it comes from our world, like a very natural design, right? At least in the modern adaptations, not the past ones or whatever, but it feels like a dinosaur or something you could actually see in the real world, like through evolution or whatever. You don't want the spirit of the ocean, something that's meant to be like very of otherworldly and very like flowy and stuff like that. You don't want it to look like a very earthly creature like Godzilla. To me, it just feels so out of place and doesn't feel very spiritual at all. So I didn't like that. It also felt very weak. Like it felt constantly like the Fire Nation was going to beat it like throughout the entire thing. It felt like it was on the back foot the whole time until the end where it like did like a big tsunami or whatever. But yeah, I didn't like it. I did not like the depiction of the water like Avatar state thing at all. And then I'm like, I was left baffled by the wrap up to Zhao's storyline. Like, I think he's dead. Like, I think it was really open ended, and like I think Iroh like shoots a beam of fire at him, and then he like falls over. And I'm like, did Iroh just kill Zhao? Like that was crazy. I couldn't believe it. Then what else is there? One thing the show does better than the original is making the Avatar feel like a bridge between the worlds. Yeah, that's true. Like he does get possessed by like say the past Avatar spirits. He does go to the spirit world a few times. Like it feels like a nice it feels like it's a bridge between the worlds, which I think is great. Seeing the aftermath of the invasion is great. Like it all feels very destroyed and everyone's depressed and all that. I thought that was a great decision. And there's so much, it is another miscellaneous like criticism, but there's so much like bad crying where it feels like someone is sad, so they couldn't cry on set, so they had to like put eye drops or something. That's what it looks like a lot in the show. So I just didn't like that. And then my God, the final note here about Avatar: The Last Airbender is it ends. I don't know if it's like the last scene or it's like one of the last scenes, but Azula shows up and it's revealed that like Zhao was like working under her or something. Zhao was working under her, or he was like encouraged to do what he did, which because of her. And I just find that to be wholly uninteresting. Or at least the way they executed it in this, like the idea could be interesting. They just didn't do a very good job of it. And also she looks so goofy in the helmet. Like she's like everyone is like giving a rallying cry or something, and she's like wearing this helmet because they've taken her martial or something. I don't like it. It was cringe and not for me. But anyway, that is Avatar: The Last Airbender. My thoughts on this adaptation. Next up, we have The Creator 2023. So this is a movie. It's 2 hours and 13 minutes long, and I watched it on the 27th of February. So this is a Gareth Edwards movie, director of Godzilla 2014, which I think I gave 4 stars. It's last year. It's one of my favorite movies of last year. He's also the director of Rogue One, which I think is a fantastically directed movie. And now he's the director of The Creator, which is a movie about how you've got AI that has been integrated with society. Like it was getting better and better, and they were helping out and everything. And then the AI nuked Los Angeles, and then the US is like anti-AI, but the rest of the world still supports AI and everything. And that's the premise of this movie generally. So my overall thoughts, visually, this is a fantastic looking movie. This is one of the best looking movies I've ever seen. Like VFX and directing and like what's interesting, I guess, is that I would say similar things for the other two Gareth Edwards things I've seen, which is the Godzilla movie. I think that looked fantastic. And also Rogue One, I think is a really good looking movie, at least what I remember from it. So yeah, I think he's just like a really, really visually oriented, making good looking movies. I am a big fan of Gareth Edwards, basically. Another overall thought, which is that it's interesting to have a movie about AI, but the AI isn't super intelligent here. They don't even really have greater physical strength or anything. They probably do a little bit, but not by much. And it's though they've made a movie about very similar to Blade Runner, but without like the superpowers of the actual replicant. An interesting take on AI, I guess, in this movie. I enjoy it, like a human-like intelligence, not superhuman or anything like that. Basically, this movie really just, like, stemming from that point, it feels like you're watching a movie where it's just a world which has robots like naturally integrated into it, just the citizens of that world, which I think is a really cool concept, and they do it well. Now, the one overall criticism I have of this is that the movie feels somewhat lifeless and emotionless. Like, that's my major criticism of it. You're basically throughout this whole movie following this main character guy, who works for the US, and he finds a little kid that's like the MacGuffin of the movie. He's like a robot that has special powers that can end the war or whatever. And by the end of the movie, there's like an emotional moment where like one of them, like the guy like tells the kid to run away or whatever. And it's meant to be an emotional moment, but I didn't feel anything whatsoever. So I think the emotion-wise, or like feeling the soul and life of the movie, it just completely fell flat for me in that regard. So yeah. Now I have very few notes on this. So you're probably looking at the runtime of this video and you're like, man, all right, you're like 2 minutes to talk about this. It's crazy. First one, the intro to this movie is fantastic. The intro, in a very similar manner to Godzilla, which I think also had a really good intro, it's a montage, basically. A montage of like news clips throughout the history of AI development in the world. And it's like grainy and boxed in. It looks so cool. And you got like robots and like when I say robots, I mean, it's like, it's feels very realistic and very grounded of a depiction of like the history of AI development, which I think is really cool. And then it ends on this shot here of like Los Angeles being nuked, and it's like stops and all the music stops. I think the music stops, and it's really great. It's very effective and evocative, and I think it's really cool. What's next? The movie is surprisingly straightforward. There's no twists, there's no moral quandaries, there's no ethical explorations. It's just a simple, like, let's go from A to B. Like, let's get the kid, and let's get him to, like, where he can destroy the big ship in the sky. I'm sure I have it in my notes, but what was it called? I have no idea. We'll get to it. I'm sure I'll read it here, because that thing in the sky looks so cool. And just like the visual effect of like the light that is scanning the terrain and like the sound effects of it. And it just feels like this, like Big Brother is like always watching, and it's like the US government. And oh my God, that is a really cool aspect of it. Nomad, is that what it's called? Nomad, I think? Or NORAD? No, Nomad, I think. We'll see as I get through these notes. It's also kind of interesting that we open this movie following the villains, where, well, not technically open, but like the second scene after the opening scene, where it's also not the second scene, all right, for anyone who's seen this movie. The scene I'm talking about is that the first major like plot element of this movie is that the US government is trying to break into this facility that is hiding a weapon that could destroy Nomad, or whatever the ship is called. And we're following the villains here, the US government, who is like trying to kill the AI and destroy it and like end the progression of this like species of people who are the AI. And we're following them as they're trying to do this evil thing. And it's a bit novel. Like I've never seen a movie where you're following the villains so closely in a mission and like hoping for them to succeed, I guess. It was interesting. Then there's a few weird plot decisions that I've written here. So one, we spend this time with a mechanic guy who I think is like, he's a hacker or something, and he can hack AI or something. And he has a girlfriend who is a AI. And for some reason, when the AI, like when the robots who are police like show up, for some reason they give the AI girlfriend a bomb and like blow her up and kill her. And I'm like, why would you kill the AI? I thought you were like pro AI. Like, what a weird thing. So I don't know what was going on there. And then what's my other one here? I said it's also a little odd how early in it's a little bit of weird progression. Now, maybe I missed a detail that explains this, but at the beginning of the movie, they have to do this really super secret covert mission where they can only have a single ship and like 5 like really trained soldiers that go in and try and extract this child because they're like in enemy territory with AI. But by the end of the movie, you've got like giant like US tanks rolling in and like destroying all the AI like people, and they feel like so powerful and like all like omnipresent like in the entire nation. By the end of the movie, and I'm like, why did the US like, like what happened? Like how did they get so much stronger of a presence in this nation, whereas they were so like quiet and timid like at the beginning, or like having to hide away, you know? Felt weird. Then what else? I said, for an otherwise great movie, why is the mechanic guy giving this cringe speech about how the girl's powers are going to grow and eventually she'll be able to control any technology from anywhere? He sounds so nonchalant about it and figures out this weird specific thing so quickly, and it's just plain bad dialogue. Yeah, so true. Because otherwise, this is a very well-made movie with very like weird, baffling decisions like this. Is what that's my like overall take of this movie. I never gave my score, by the way. It's a 4 out of 5, right? I think it's great. Like overall, this is really great. Then the AI claims that the nuke was a coding error, human error. I'm like, oh wow, good, somewhat of a plot twist. Like, no, it's not really a plot twist. It's kind of just like, oh wow, the AI are good. Like we love them. They're great. I did like, despite the weirdness of like the US having these overwhelmingly crazy tanks that are rolling in, I thought as like a visual and like an evocative like feeling, I thought the tanks were a really cool addition. I love those scenes with them coming in. Oh, then we get the cute, like, not cute in like a cute way, but cute in like a clever way. The death of the US lady, like the lady who's in charge of the mission or whatever, where there's like a bomb on her and the AI girl, like the MacGuffin of the movie, tries to stop it, but then the soldiers are like, hey, stop what you're doing, whatever. And then they stop it, and then she dies because they told her to stop the bomb that was going to kill her, and it was kind of cool. I like that. Then yeah, this I kind of wish this happened. So this is, like I said, a very straightforward, predictable movie where at the beginning you're like, AI bad, we don't like AI. And by the end of the movie, you're like, oh my god, AI is so great. They just want to end the war because the humans want to perpetuate this war and they want to destroy all of AI kind because of this unintentional, or this, what from the human perspective, intentional bomb that the AI did to the US. Yeah, basically, you start the movie hating the AI, you like the movie, you spend the end of the movie, you're like, oh my god, I love the AI, they're great, they're just normal people like us, and they deserve to have respect and everything. I think it would have been really cool to do a twist ending where right at the end, the AI is actually evil, and all the empathy you build up towards them this whole time has just been an act they've been putting on, and it would be a cool twist on like the conventional story that is otherwise the purpose of this movie. So yeah. Like it would have been cool if the movie ends on like another nuke of Los Angeles or something, and it's like by the AI this time intentionally. And maybe the war that has happened with the humans has built up a resentment in the AI. It's like a cyclical thing about, cycle of violence, Attack on Titan, blah blah blah. Anyway, there's also a weird cheesy climax to this where the kid is gonna be destroyed by the US government, but then they want to bring in the guy who is looking after the kid so that he can kill the kids because the kid won't let the other people kill him, whatever. Basically, the guy comes in and he like shoots the kid, and then later on it's revealed that he whispered to the kid, "Stand by, not off," which is like a cute reference to before when he killed the guy and he said he's just turned off or whatever. Now he's just saying he's on standby because like, I'm not going to kill you, kid, I'm just like stunning you or whatever. But it's meant to act like as like a big plot twist or like a reveal when you actually find out that that's what he said to the kid when he like shot him. But it's like obvious, like obviously the kid's not dead here, like we haven't reached the climax of the movie yet, why are you doing this? So that was a bit goofy. On Nomad, here it is. Nomad is such a cool concept. The blue laser scanning the planet of the and showing off the might of America, who are the big bullies of this movie. I think that's really great. This is really a very anti-America, anti-military kind of movie, which I think is really interesting and depicted very well. And then, yeah, like I mentioned before, the final note here, the main drawback of the movie is that I don't feel the connection between the main guy and the kid. It just, there's no emotion in this really at all. So it's a shame. But anyway, that's The Creator. And the final thing on this digest, here's the 2024 ranking so far. So all the way at the bottom, we have What If, which is still the absolute worst thing I've seen this year. Probably to some surprise of some people watching this, you're like, What If was worse than Madam Web? Absolutely it was. Then we have Radius, which is, the worst thing this month, followed by Madam Web, which, although it was pretty bad, it just wasn't as boring as Radius. I was pretty bored watching Radius, but Madam Web was at least interesting somewhat. Then we have Avatar: The Last Airbender in the 3 out of 5s, followed by The Creator at the bottom of the 4 out of 5s, then The Menu at the bottom of the 5 out of 5s, and then Heavenly Delusion, one of the greatest things, one of my favorite anime of all time. I rewatched it twice. I love it. All the way at the top of the 5 out of 5s. And who knows if it will be dethroned this year. I think it's going to be a very daunting task for anything else to top that, but we'll see. But anyway, that's the end of Digest, so see you next month.